Well, good evening, everybody. Wow, lots of people are watching from X. We are doing the live stream of the presidential debate between Donald Trump, former President Donald Trump, and current Vice President Kamala Harris. And we got a few people in the chat here. We've got 26 of you on X already, 12 people on YouTube. We are streaming live right now to Rumble, my X, Jer Niish's YouTube, and my YouTube. So everybody, welcome. Have commentary. The debate does not start for another about 25 minutes. I'll start sharing my screen soon. It's live. They're doing their preamble, but the actual debate starts at 9 p.m. Eastern. So, anyways, I'm not going to babble on too much more. How are you guys doing, Jer Niish? What is up?
Doing well. How are you?
I'm okay.
It's okay.
Hey. I'm having the weird connection in here tonight.
That's bizarre. Can you not hear?
I can now, but the screen was like reconnecting you the whole time. I think this happens to me, Melissa, every time I'm on with you, like we're a hot topic or something.
Yeah, the government's like, oh, it's these people again.
It's these bitches.
Oh, come on now. This is family friendly. No, I'm kidding. All right. Okay, I have something funny to show you guys. Everybody who's streaming in. If you're not streaming at first, you won't see this, but what's his name? Swalwell? Eric Swalwell had a total meltdown. Guys, he had a total meltdown.
He loved Fang Fang long time.
Yeah, Mr. Fang Fang Spy Shagger. Mm-hmm. He had a total meltdown, and you're never going to guess what it was about. Memes. Haitians. Memes of Donald Trump with kitty cats. Here we go.
Oh, saving the animals. Yeah.
Watch them flip out, guys.
Hell is this? The chairman tweets, protect our ducks and kittens in Ohio because he goes down some crazy rabbit hole, completely debunked that aliens are eating pets? My God, are you okay, Mr. Chairman? Because last year, for a very long time, you tweeted and promoted Kanye West as he was calling for genocide against the Jews, and you kept it up. And now, when we have victims coming here, you're tweeting this nonsense. I don't know why you would do this. I hope you're okay. I don't know if the aliens who are eating your ducks are in the room with us right now, but Mr. Chairman, this is a serious issue. These people have loved ones who have been lost, and you tweeted this.
Wow.
It's a fucking joke. God, get over it.
Oh my goodness.
You know what, Jer? There's a lot of people who don't have a sense of humor.
Are you really? I would never have thought that.
There's a lot of people who can't take a joke and think it's serious, and I have experience with this.
and generally, they have a room temperature IQ.
Well, it's getting worse too. My goodness, what is going on with people and this lack of humor?
They've all been,
I don't know,
injected with poison.
Oh Lord,
what's going on? So, I got a few fun memes too. People talking about. Look at this. I mean, do you think it's going to be a fair debate? I mean, honestly.
It'll be as fair as the Biden one.
I want to kill your babies. You know it's going to be. And here's another duck one. All the cat ladies.
Oh, here I found those duck ones that I had.
Don't call me a cat lady. Don't eat my cats. Which ones do you choose? Okay, we got another show. We're gonna have some fun until such time.
Here,
oh,
I got it.
You Mel shared it.
I screwed up. This is what I wanted. This one.
Hello,
Whoa.
Incognito. Incognito is in. He says hello, hello, and mind
Hello.
virus.
Whoa.
Can you see? Am I sharing? Yeah.
Okay, I'll put it on here. We'll get to that debate, but oh look, see, you are that. This is totally racist. It's Santa
Oh,
Trump.
dear.
Yeah. There was another
You
one.
know what's really crazy is it's happening on both sides. It's
Huh.
not just
Oh.
woke people, it's just people in general. I understand there's things that make you upset, and that's fine that people don't want to engage or they don't want that. That's perfectly fine. But I think people feel like, I don't know, like they can just do a whole bunch of temper tantrums and flips out. I mean, Eric Swalwell to flip out like that when the guy was banging a Chinese spy.
You know, the thing that really is interesting is because I'm appalled by all these Haitians being here, and they're scary. They're scary on so many levels. I'm upset about what is going on in Springfield. The irony is not lost on me that it's Springfield, and I think about what is it?
Simpsons. The Simpsons.
Simpsons. However, and then of course, I'm an animal person. I prefer them to humans. But we have to find levity in all this darkness. We cannot lose our sense of humor. And this is a very bad sign when people start becoming too
Oh.
infected by the darkness that they cannot laugh it out in a way. And that is part of the medicine.
Do you think it's like the part of the drama that these people have been taught in politics? Because he's like covering his head like it's the worst thing that ever happened. Like they think everything's worse than Hitler now, and they're being so theatrical. And it's like, dude, it's just a meme. Chill your tits.
And this is the job of the memes too. The memes are the modern day jesters, the modern day comedians, the modern day reflection of what's going on. The memes are, like a George Carlin. They give us a sense of not only levity but reflection as to the absurdness around us. And I'm not sure. So for me, it's all of a sudden becoming something like, are you human? Are you not human? Because humans used to be able to laugh. And a lot of bad shit has happened to me, and I've been able to laugh at that stuff during my life, at the absurd nature of ridiculousness, of being hurt, of being damaged, etc. Maybe not during it, maybe it took time, but in the end, we need to lay the burden down to move forward. And in laying the burden down, you stop giving it power. And that's the thing. Everyone is engaging in something that is actually eating at their soul, and then they cannot find the levity.
Yeah, and it's easy. It's like flipping out. And I think people have stuff in their own problems in their heads, and they have a lot. I think a lot of people don't have control over their emotions. They're like retarded. So instead of saying, "Okay, I don't like what that person said or did, but I'm just going to go and focus on what I want and control their emotions," they literally have a flip out, project all their wounding onto somebody, and they make the personal someone else's problem, and they're not even self-aware enough or mature. I don't think they're emotionally mature enough to even control their own reactions, or and they block everybody, they flip out, they go nuts, they start spreading lies about people, and it's out of hand.
Yeah, it is out of hand. I mean, I've been going through this personally. One of the things I think that's important to remember here too is that this is all theatrical, and that is something that people cannot get into their heads. That there's a theater aspect to this. Politics from day one have always had a theater. Step right up, right? Step right up, folks. And had a theatrical aspect to it to get people filtered in towards whatever their aims are. We are far from We are far too
Mhm.
much, and our is not there. Yes, the stakes couldn't be higher. Yes, it is the darkest times I have ever personally seen. Yes, it is terrible and horrible. And at the same time, there are overtures happening that we personally have no control over. So what is it going to do besides give you gout and the agita to get so completely overinvested and in a state of vitriol where you want to mow down your best friend, your lover, your sister, etc. People are losing it over things they actually have no control over.
Yep, they are.
They
And
always have, but that's nothing new. What's changed is that
New level.
I don't think so. I think that people are more vocal about it, and that
Mhm.
there's more
and they have a
social
place
media
to put it
outlets,
now.
and they have a place to
Yeah.
put it now. Exactly. So there's more outlets for that sentiment. That's just my thinking.
I just personally don't remember families splitting apart at the
Oh no.
level we're seeing now.
Well,
I don't remember full-on divorces and no contact and this whole level of crazy that's going on in people's personal
But
lives because never
politics,
Trump
is
or
it COVID or both?
well, I'm just talking about in our personal lives, like friends
well,
that won't talk
isn't
to
that
you.
what communist goal is to split people up?
That is
Yeah, it
definitely
is.
one of the
Absolutely.
tenets. I personally haven't had anyone like, disown me because of my
Well,
stance on things.
I don't talk to my
Happening
family, but
over.
it's not about politics.
Like I can't talk to my parents, my dad, pretty much my whole family. Really can't talk to them about politics because it's always the TDS is strong. And I love you,
Yeah.
Dad, if you're listening.
Yeah, I mean
Come on.
it's a thing. I mean, it is. I'm seeing it. I'm seeing marriages break up over this stuff. I'm seeing friends break up over it. I have personally had people step away for stupid shit like this, and it's bizarre. It is bizarre. If you don't, a lot of my friends that were in the LG that used to be, I mean, I don't know what they are now in the LGBTQ community that think I'm crazy for not adhering to the agenda. And I just had a wonderful chat with Gays Against Groomers that will be on the marquee. And we talked
Ooh,
about this stuff.
nice.
This is a big deal, and it's happening on a big level where people can't separate now. There's this whatever it is they feel and say I've loved you, I've always loved you, we have differences and let's just not talk about it. Even no, it's get the F out of my life, I don't ever want to talk to you again, scorched earth, and die painfully. That's what people are doing. Friends, family, lovers, etc. And it's bizarre because what does that mean? Are people that mind entrained, that brainwashed? I mean, apparently so. And this is what I'm speaking to.
Yeah. It is bizarre and it's strange. I can understand people if there's like abuse and crazy stuff not talking to their family and all that stuff, but this is literally like the ultimate dream goal of the Communist Party is to split you apart because someone's voting for somebody else. And I mean, that's how effective all the campaigning
When
against
everyone
Trump
has been
was.
separated from their peers, then the government becomes their friend. And that's the whole idea behind communism or Marxism.
And the
And their
government is
parent.
never your friend.
And separating your children from because that's what's happening is
Right.
the children.
The family unit is a danger.
Yeah. And they become the children of the government. And I mean, this is all easy to see. And at the end of the day, when we saw how rigged the last elections were, that our votes didn't actually count, what do we do with that information? I
What about
watched it.
all the disenfranchised Biden voters who had a bait and switch pulled on them with Harris.
That's what I'm saying.
I think a lot of them don't even realize they've been disenfranchised. They're like, oh, okay.
But a lot do.
Low
Yeah.
IQ voters is what you're talking
Yeah.
about. Low information
and now
voters.
we've
Not
got all these new, illegal aliens, and they're illegal because they broke the law by crossing into America illegally. But makes you illegal, and they're being cowed to. They're getting driver's license. They can vote. This was all an agenda. This is the bare minimum of that agenda, because as we're seeing with places like, Springfield right now, and Colorado, and New York, and California, etc., how maniacal all this is. What are we to make of that? If you don't need to be a citizen to vote,
then what's the point in having a country? And I think that's what they're doing.
Yeah.
What's the point in having America?
The United States poses an existential threat to the idea of globalism.
And that's why they want to bring it down.
Exactly. That's what I was going to say.
Yeah. I mean, they have to bring the United States down because it is a symbol. It's a strong symbol, and it's still standing at this point. But my God, they're really undermining it in such a big way. And that's when you look over and you say, well, who's doing this? Because whether you love or hate Trump, he did start building and built the strongest wall in my lifetime I've seen down there. And then immediately when Biden came in, they stopped all that. They started tearing it down. This, you just have to look at the actions, but also who's signing what, whitehouse.gov, and look at the legislation and see whose names are on there and actually read through the stuff. Don't let someone like Tim Pool tell you what it is. Go read this shit for yourself.
And listen to to what they say about it, because if you listen to what Kamala Harris has said about immigration and the border and whatnot, from a Democratic perspective, from being a Democrat, I'm an ex-Democrat. I get what she's saying, and this is the thing I've noticed lately, is that people can have benign opinions on either side, and the other side will take it and make it an extreme position. Like Kamala Harris was saying that she doesn't. Her words were, "Undocumented people aren't criminal."
Yes,
but if you break the law to come in, that's a criminal act.
Oh, but if they let them in and they're undocumented, they're not criminals.
And I get that. That is nuance. That is nuance, and I
people
get
take the nuance is stripped from everything we're hearing these days, and we're just hearing like the loudest screaming from either side, and it's very annoying.
Yeah,
it is. And but the thing for me that just is a watching it is that it's so outrageous, and it's such a show. That's like the thing that I keep going is, how could this not be more produced? How could this not be more Hollywood?
Well, oh yeah, it's all
that's the first thing that I always said when I lived in Canada. I'd say, good Lord, I feel like I'm watching the Super Bowl when I watch American politics. It's like exciting and crazy, and there's so much money in it. It's almost insane. It doesn't even feel like real democracy or some kind of altruistic thing. It feels like crazy.
Like watching, I remember my papa enjoyed the World Wrestling Federation, the staged wrestling,
yeah.
Hulk Hogan and all that. That's what all this feels like to me. It just reminds me of that same stuff.
Yeah. That's why I wanted to stream this and have us kind of talk about it. And and we're all we're sitting here streaming it because we know people are interested, but I wanted to kind of have, I know it's crazy, but I wanted to have sort of an alternative Gen X voice on it, not just the same. Because if you go and look at Tim Pool and all of the people who do a lot of this covering it, they're independent media, but they follow a template. Like, they're following media templates and sensational stuff. They're following a template. They're they're not that deep of thinkers, really. They do the one-liners and the punchy stuff, and they try to make it look racy and exciting, and they want that energy. And I just feel like that is, yes, they're independent, but there's also a fakeness even to them now, because they realize what gets people's attention. There's a psychology about it.
You know who's a really good alternative media person that has none of that is Styx Hexenhammer.
I agree. Yeah, he is, actually.
He's been exactly the same forever. I've been watching him for 10 years, every day.
Yeah, he's a solid. He is definitely a solid. The thing is, all this big stuff is happening that's real, but it's like bread and circus. So
Fake polls.
It's taking, you've got to have discernment to see where the real story is. And I think the more superbolic it is, the more big, the more World Wrestling Federation it is, that's there to guide your eye over. I think that's the setup. I think that's where all that is, because something big is going down, and right now it's the US.
Yeah, and it is so, I mean, I hope it doesn't happen. I hope that, but I don't know. It's kind of crazy. I often...
Why am I hearing voices?
Oh, shit.
Okay.
Is that Joffrey?
I muted her.
I think it's Joffrey.
Joffrey. Okay.
Anyway,
so anyways,
Nish was talking. Nish is trying to talk.
Oh, is she? Okay, cool. Okay, we got you back on.
Okay, so all right, I will keep an eye out.
Okay, she wasn't trying to talk. My bad. Oh, shit.
That.
I'm in the wrong account.
But my hello.
Yep.
Hello. I got you back on.
Okay, cool. I don't know why that hooked up. That's my ride.
Okay, cool.
Joffrey.
We got 5 minutes. And we'll be streaming live, guys. We got it up here. I don't know. I don't know how this is going to go. I have a feeling that Kamala Harris is going to try to pin Afghanistan on Trump. And it's going to be abortion, women's issues. And that's one of the things I'm really disturbed at when it comes to, women and liberal women is it's like the abortion is the queen mother of all their voting things. And that really sounds disturbing. More fake polls. It really sounds disturbing that women's biggest goal in elections is to murder babies en masse. Like, we're not talking about safe abortions for, extreme situations. We're talking about, I just want an abortion 20 times if I want one. Because I'm promiscuous and I'm having sex with anyone, and anytime, anywhere, I just give me the pill. I'm going to kill this baby. And I just find it so disgusting that liberal women have actually come to this place in their lives where they just don't even give a shit about babies. Even if they're mothers, they're like, yeah, I should still be able to have an abortion anytime I want to because I'm a woman.
I don't actually have a problem with that as long as the kid isn't viable. If the baby's not viable, I don't give a shit what you do with it.
I was always taught to be responsible. And I think a lot of these women,
of course,
although yes, men have to be responsible but a lot of these women are not doing responsibility first, in my opinion. They're just being irresponsible. I can understand accidents happen and things go wrong. Things aren't always the same. There's medical issues, but a lot of these are like one woman was standing with a t-shirt saying, I've had 19 abortions. You've got an abortion mobile sitting at the DNC convention. I mean, this is crazy. It's crazy. It's just crazy. All right, we got 3 minutes here. All right. I'm going to turn up the volume here. Let's hear what she's saying.
Pump up the jam. Pump it
It
up.
appears to be, and people's voices on both sides. I mean, the reason I'm watching the debate this evening, I am a Republican. I do plan to vote for Donald Trump. However, I am watching the debate. I want to hear policy
Is this Joe
on
Kennedy?
both sides.
It is
I
just
had
somebody from North
planned to vote
Carolina,
for
Okay.
Jimmy
apparently.
Carter years ago, and when I changed my mind was the night before I voted, when the economic report came out, and it continued to trend down. So, I have not yet totally made up my mind, even though I am a Republican. I'm an American first.
So, Tony,
And-
what could the vice president convince you to vote for her? And if so,
could.
how?
She could, if she shares policy. All of the stuff that they have been pushing, the liberal agenda, as far as the electric vehicles. I have a brother, and his neighbor has one, and he could fill up his vehicle 4 times a month for what it cost him to charge his vehicle one time.
Oh, for God's sake.
He said his electric bill, his totally electric vehicle, is absolutely bankrupting them.
Of course
and
it
so
is.
pushing for these policies, I want to hear more mainstream policy.
Okay. So, Tony, do you believe that New York Times poll that we showed you is accurate? Then, essentially, a tie in your state.
I believe so. There are very red areas and there are very blue areas, and most of the blue areas are the more heavily populated. But I do think North Carolina is up in the air.
Okay.
And that is
Tony, I
why
want to show you and others that it's not just this New York Times poll, Washington Post poll, and this tweeted out by the Washington Post reporter, showing that small changes in their polling model. North Carolina moves from a small lead from the former president to a tie, while Pennsylvania tightens a bit with a few close, high-quality polls. Beyond that, not much movement going into tonight's debate.
I think all
So
their
there
polls
are
are
the swing
BS.
states and Washington Post polling. We showed you a little bit from the New York Times polling ahead of tonight's debate. Of course, people, the candidates, the voters, the media will all be looking at the polls.
ABC is insanely
Ernest
woke.
in
They're insanely
Georgia,
liberal.
Democratic caller. Ernest, are you with us?
Hello.
In Georgia, we're listening to you.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, what do you want to hear from the candidates tonight?
Yeah, I would like to hear our ex-president apologize for January the 6th.
Oh, for
Even
God's
though
sakes.
he
I knew it.
feels that what he did.
All right, I'm going to leave it there. The ABC debate is beginning. We'll take you there now.
He didn't do
Meeting
J6. It
ever.
was not his
Historic
responsibility.
race for president
That's
upended
Nancy
just weeks
Pelosi.
ago.
Oh,
President
shit.
Biden
Is it actually
withdrawing
getting
after his
ready?
last debate. Donald Trump
Yeah.
now up against a new opponent.
So they're
The
actually on
candidates
time.
separated by the smallest of margins, essentially
They're on
tied
time.
in the polls nationally and in the key battlegrounds, including right here in Pennsylvania.
It just
all
sucks
still
that it's
very much in
ABC.
play. The ABC News presidential debate starts right now.
This is an
Yeah, but
ABC
of course
News
it
special.
is.
The
I
most
mean,
consequential moment of this campaign. Kamala Harris,
Together, we will chart a new way forward.
Donald Trump,
We will soon be a great nation again.
face to face, historic. The ABC News presidential debate.
I wonder
Here
how many
now,
times she's going to
David
mention
Muir
Joy.
and Lindsay Davis.
Good evening, I'm David Muir.
These
and
people
thank
are
you for
so
joining us
fake.
for
They're
tonight's
so
ABC
phony.
News
It just
presidential
hurts my
debate. We want to
soul.
welcome viewers watching on ABC and around the world tonight. Vice President Kamala Harris and President Donald Trump are just moments away from taking the stage in this unprecedented race for president.
And I'm Lindsay Davis. Tonight's meeting could be the most consequential event of their campaigns, with Election Day now less than 2 months away. For Vice President Kamala Harris, this is her first debate since President Biden withdrew from the race on July 21st. Of course, that decision followed his debate against President Donald Trump in June. Since then, this race has taken on an entirely new dynamic.
And that brings us to the rules of tonight's debate. 90 minutes with 2 commercial breaks. No topics or questions have been shared with the campaigns. The candidates will have 2 minutes to answer questions.
It's
and this
already
is the clock.
gross.
That's what they'll be seeing. 2 minutes for rebuttals and 1 minute for follow-ups, clarifications, or responses. Their microphones will only be turned on when it's their turn to speak.
Don't you guys notice the way it's like a...
There is no audience here tonight in this hall
this
at the National
totally
Constitution
cleansed
Center.
and
This is an
washed-free
intimate setting for
conversation
2
to make them
candidates
look like they're
who have
civilized.
never met.
I know.
President Trump won the coin toss. He chose to deliver the final closing statement of the evening. Vice President Harris selected the podium to the right.
She couldn't handle an audience. She'd wet her pants.
Kamala Harris
I know.
She'd start code switching.
Yeah.
Depends. Get back into life.
Oh, here they are.
Oh, here we go.
Black suit. Interesting
Kamala
choice
Harris.
of clothing.
Let's have a good debate.
Have fun.
Thank you.
They apparently have never met.
Welcome
Did
to
you
both.
see
It's
that? She
wonderful to
said
have you. It's an
Kamala
honor to have you
Harris.
both here
Like she,
tonight.
like
Good
he doesn't
evening.
know.
We are looking forward to a spirited and thoughtful debate.
They've
So
never
let's get
met
started.
before.
She
I
actually
want to
had
begin
to
tonight
say
with
her
an issue
name.
that voters repeatedly say is their number one issue, and that is the economy and the cost of living in this country. Vice President Harris, you and President Trump were elected 4 years ago, and your opponent on the stage here tonight
President
often
Biden,
asks his
not
supporters,
Trump.
are you better off than you were 4 years ago? When it comes to the economy, do you believe Americans are better off than they were 4 years ago?
So I was raised as a middle-class kid, and I am
Oh,
actually
Lord.
the only person on this stage who has
Watch
a
how she
plan that is
bounces.
about lifting up the middle class and working people of America. I believe in
Oh,
the
my
ambitions,
goodness.
But
the
I just haven't done that
aspirations,
plan
the
in the
dreams
past
of
4
American
years.
people. And
I
that
hope
is
she
why
tells
I
us how black
imagine
she
and
is.
have actually a
I hope
plan
she
to
laughs.
build what I call an opportunity economy. Because here's the thing. We know that we have a shortage of homes and housing. And the cost of housing is too expensive for
Oh,
far
so
too
we're going
many
to bring
people.
in more
We
immigrants.
know that young families need support to raise their children, and I intend on extending a tax cut for those families of $6,000, which is the largest
For the
child
first
tax
year
credit
only,
that we have
by the
given
way.
in a long time, so that those young families can afford to buy a crib, buy a
And
car
then the
seat,
new
buy clothes
tax
for their children.
on
My
A tax
passion, one of
credit
them
doesn't
is
equate
small
to cash in your
businesses. I
pocket.
was actually, my
No,
mother
it just
raised my
means you
sister
write
and
it
me,
off on your
but
taxes.
there was a
Exactly.
woman who
So they
helped
still
raise
can't
us.
afford
We
a
call
crib.
her our second mother.
Yeah.
She was a small business owner. I love our small businesses. My plan is to give a $50,000 tax deduction to startup small businesses, knowing they are
For
part of the backbone of
immigrants.
America's economy.
For
My
immigrants.
opponent, on the other hand, his
Have you
plan
read it?
is to do what he has done
It's
before,
favoring immigrants.
which is to provide a
course
tax
it
cut
does.
for billionaires and big corporations, which will result in $5 trillion to America's deficit. My
Oh,
opponent
come
has a
on,
plan that I
Ukraine,
call the
bitch.
Trump
Don't
sales
even go
tax,
there.
Well,
which
let's
would
not
be
even
a
talk about all the money they
20%
give the
tax on
immigrants.
everyday goods that
Wait,
you
wait,
rely
wait.
on to
What's
get
going
through
to
the
cause a
month.
$5 trillion deficit?
Economists have said that
His
Trump
tax
sales
cuts
would
to the
actually
rich.
Oh, God,
result
no.
for middle-class families
They've been in place for
in about
6 years.
$4,000 more a year.
They'll attract more
because of
business
his
to America.
policies and his ideas about what should be the backs of middle-class people paying
Her
for
stuff
tax
only
cuts
works
for
if you have a
billionaires.
communist brain.
President Trump, I'll give you 2 minutes.
Meanwhile,
The
she
thing-
gets
what she said is true.
$750,000 to speak
She
an
knows
hour.
that. We're doing
What she's
tariffs with
saying
other
is
countries
true
Hey,
because
what's he
they're
saying?
gonna
I wanna hear
finally,
Trump.
after 75 years, pay us back for all that we've done for the world. And the tariff will be substantial in some cases. I took in billions and billions of dollars, as you
Why
know,
does
from
that hair
China.
look darker?
In fact, they never took the tariff off because it was so
Lighting.
much money they can't. It would totally destroy everything that they've set out to do. They're taking in billions of dollars from China and other places. They've left the tariffs on. When I had it, I had tariffs, and yet I had no inflation. Look, we've had a terrible economy because inflation has, which is really known as a country buster. It breaks up countries. We have inflation
That's why
like
they're
very
doing
few
it.
people have ever seen before, probably the worst in our nation's history. We were at 21%, but that's being generous because many things are 50, 60, 70, and 80% higher than they were just a few years ago. This has been a disaster for people, for the middle class, but for every class. On top of that, we have millions of people pouring into our country from prisons and jails, from mental institutions and insane asylums, and they're coming in and they're taking jobs that are occupied right now by African Americans and Hispanics, and also unions. Unions are going to be affected very soon. And you see what's happening. You see what's happening with towns throughout the United States. You look at Springfield, Ohio. You look at Aurora in Colorado. They are taking over the towns. They're taking over buildings. They're going in violently. These are the people that she and Biden led into our country, and they're destroying our country. They're dangerous. They're at the highest level of criminality, and we have to get them out. We have to get them out fast. I created one of the greatest economies in the history of our country. I'll do it again and even better.
We are going to get to immigration and border security during this debate, but I would like to let Vice President Harris respond on the economy here.
Well, I would love to. Let's talk about what Donald Trump left us. Donald Trump left us the worst unemployment since the Great Depression. Donald Trump left us the worst public health epidemic in a century. Donald Trump left us the worst attack on our democracy since the Civil War. And what we have done is clean up Donald Trump's mess. What we have done and what I intend to do is build on what we know are the aspirations and the hopes of the American people. But I'm going to tell you all in this debate tonight, you're going to hear from the same old tired playbook, a bunch of lies, grievances, and name calling. What you're going to hear tonight is a detailed and dangerous plan called Project 2025 that the former president intends on implementing if he were elected again.
Fact check, he's not doing Project 2025.
The American people want a president who understands the importance of bringing us together, knowing we have so much more in common than what separates us. And I pledge to you to be a president for all Americans.
President Trump will give you a minute here to respond.
Number one, I have nothing to do, as you know, and as she knows better than anyone, I have nothing to do with Project 2025. That's out there. I haven't read it. I don't want to read it purposely. I'm not going to read it. This was a group of people that got together. They came up with some ideas, I guess some good, some bad, but it makes no difference. I have nothing to do. Everybody knows I'm an open book. Everybody knows what I'm going to do. Cut taxes very substantially and create a great economy like I did before. We had the greatest economy. We got hit with a pandemic. And the pandemic was not since 1917, where 100 million people died, has there been anything like it. We did a phenomenal job with the pandemic. We handed them over a country where the economy and where the stock market was higher than it was before the pandemic came in. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. We made ventilators for the entire world. We got gowns, we got masks, we did things that nobody thought possible. And people give me credit for rebuilding the military. They give me credit for a lot of things, but not enough credit for the great job we did with the pandemic. But the only jobs they got were bounce back jobs. These were jobs bounced back, and it bounced back and it went to their benefit. But I was the one that created them. They know it, and so does everybody else.
Vice President Harris, I'll let you respond.
So Donald Trump has no plan for you. And when you look at his economic plan, it's all about tax breaks for the richest people. I am offering what I describe as an opportunity economy, and the best economists in our country, if not the world, have reviewed our relative plans for the future of America. What Goldman Sachs has said is that Donald Trump's plan would make the economy worse. Mine would strengthen the economy. What the Wharton School has said is Donald Trump's plan
I want to see
would actually explode the deficit.
Info on this.
16 Nobel laureates have described his economic plan as something that would increase inflation and by the middle of next year would invite a recession. You just have to look at where we are and where we stand on the issues. And I'd invite you to know that Donald Trump actually has no plan for you because he is more interested in defending himself than he is in looking out for you.
Projection.
Again, yeah.
Look, I went to the Wharton School of Finance, and many of those professors, the top professors, think my plan is a brilliant plan. It's a great plan. It's a plan that's going to bring up our worth, our value as a country. It's going to make people want to be able to go and work and create jobs and create a lot of good, solid money for our country. And just to finish off, she doesn't have a plan. She copied Biden's plan, and it's like 4 sentences, like run, spot, run. 4 sentences that are just, oh, we're trying to lower taxes. She doesn't have a plan. Take a look at her plan. She doesn't have a plan.
Mr. President, I do want to drill down on
I
something you
love
both
the
brought
run
up.
spot
The
run.
Vice President brought up your tariffs.
The what?
You responded, and let's drill
The
down
run
on this
spot
because
run was
your
genius.
plan is what
Yeah.
she calls is essentially a national sales tax. Your proposal calls for tariffs, as you pointed out here, on foreign imports across the board. You recently said that you might double your plan, imposing tariffs up to 20% on goods coming into this country. As you know, many economists say that with tariffs at that level, costs are then passed on to the consumer. Vice President Harris has argued it'll mean higher prices on gas, food, clothing, medication, arguing it costs the typical family nearly $4,000 a year. Do you believe Americans can
You've
afford
already
higher
done that,
prices
Kamala.
because of tariffs?
They're not going to have higher prices. What's going to have and who's going to have higher prices is China and all of the countries that have been ripping us off for years. I was the only president ever. China was paying us hundreds of billions of dollars, and so were other countries. And, you know, if she doesn't like them, they should have gone out and they should have immediately cut the tariffs. But those tariffs are there 3.5 years now under their administration. We are going to take in billions of dollars, hundreds of billions of dollars. I had no inflation, virtually no inflation. They had the highest inflation perhaps in the history of our country because I've never seen a worse period of time. People can't go out and buy cereal or bacon or eggs or anything else. The people of our country are absolutely dying with what they've done. They've destroyed the economy. And all you
He's
have to
right
do
about
is look
the
at the
groceries,
The
y'all.
polls say
True
80
stuff.
and 85 and even 90%.
He's wrong
that the
about
Trump
inflation.
economy
He had
was great
2%
and their
inflation.
economy was terrible.
Vice President Harris, I do want
But
to
the
now
clarify
what,
your
groceries speak
response
for
to what the
11?
president said there, because
The
the Biden
grocery
administration
store
did keep a
is
number of
crazy.
the Trump tariffs in place. So how do you respond?
Well, let's be clear that the Trump administration resulted in a trade deficit, one of the highest we've ever seen in the history
Did
of
it?
America. He invited trade wars.
Nope.
You want to talk about his deal with China? What he ended up doing is under Donald Trump's presidency, he ended up selling American chips to China to help them improve and modernize their military, basically sold us out, when a policy about China should be in making sure the United States of America wins the competition
What
for the
country
21st
did we
century,
leave all
which
of our
means focusing
weapons
on
and
the
money in?
details of what that
Afghanistan.
requires, focusing on relationships with our allies, focusing on investing in American-based technology so that we win
yeah,
the
actually,
race on
he is
AI,
focused.
on
He's
quantum
focused on
computing. Focusing on
industry
what we need to
and
do
factories
to
and
support
steel
America's
work and copper
workforce so that we don't
And
end
the
up
trade
having
deficit
on the short end
went
of the
down
stick
over Trump,
in
by
terms
the
of
way.
workers' rights. But what Donald
Factually,
Trump
trade
did,
deficit
let's talk
went
about
down.
this, with
There you go.
COVID, is he actually thanked President Xi for what he did during COVID. Look at his tweet. Thank you, President Xi, exclamation
Jinping,
point.
not
When
Xi.
we know
Jinping.
that Xi was responsible for lacking and not giving us transparency about the origins of COVID.
Chinese names are
President Trump will let
backwards.
you respond.
First of all,
last
they
name
bought
first.
their chips from Taiwan. We hardly make chips anymore because of philosophies like they have and policies like they have. I don't say her because she has no policy. Everything that she believed 3 years ago and 4 years ago is out the window. She's going to my philosophy now. In fact, I was going to send her a MAGA hat. She's gone to my philosophy, but if she ever got elected, she'd change it. And it will be the end of our country. She's a Marxist. Everybody knows she's a Marxist. Her father's a Marxist professor in economics, and he taught her well. But when you look at what she's done to our country,
She is
and
so
when you look at
retarded.
these millions and millions of people that are pouring into our country monthly, where it's, I believe, 21 million people, not the 15 that people say, and I think
Yeah,
it's a lot
I
higher
think
than the
so, too.
21. That's bigger than New
40.
York
I
State
think it's like
pouring in.
over
And just look
33
at what they're doing to
for
our
a
country.
power number.
They're criminals. Many of these people coming in are criminals. And that's bad for our economy, too. You know, you mentioned before, we'll talk about immigration later. Well, bad immigration is the worst thing that can happen to our economy. They have, and she has, destroyed our country with policy that's insane. Almost policy that you'd say they have to hate our country.
President Trump, thank you. Lindsay?
I want to turn to the issue of abortion. President Trump, you've often touted that
I
you
knew
were able to
abortion was
kill
coming.
Roe v. Wade.
Of course.
Last year, you said that you were proud to be the most
Killers.
pro-life president in American history. Then last month, you said that your administration would be great for women and their reproductive rights. In your home state of Florida, you surprised
can't you be
many
pro-life
with regard to
and
your
have
6-week
that?
abortion ban, because you initially had said that it was too short. And you said, quote, I'm going to be voting that we need more than 6 weeks. But then the very next day, you reversed course and said you would vote to support the 6-week ban. Vice President Harris says that women shouldn't trust you on the issue of abortion because you've changed your position so many times. Therefore, why should they trust you?
Well, the reason I'm doing that vote is because the plan is, as you know, the vote is, they have abortion in the 9th month. They even have, and you can look at the governor of West Virginia, the previous governor of West Virginia, not the current governor, who's doing an excellent job, but the governor before, he said the baby will be born and we will decide what to do with the baby. In other words, we'll execute the baby. And that's why I did that, because that predominates, because they're radical. The Democrats are radical in that.
He's
and
not lying.
They
believe in abortion at any time.
Horrible pick, by the way, for our country, because he is really out of it. But her vice presidential pick says abortion in the 9th month is absolutely fine. He also says execution after birth. It's execution, no longer abortion, because the baby is born, is okay. And that's not okay with me, hence the vote. But what I did is something for 52 years. They've been trying to get Roe v. Wade into the states. And through the genius and heart and strength of 6 Supreme Court justices, we were able to do that. Now, I believe in the exceptions for rape, incest, and life of the mother. I believe strongly in it. Ronald Reagan did also. 85% of Republicans do. Exceptions. Very important. But we were able to get it, and now states are voting on it. And for the first time, you're going to see, look, this is an issue that's torn our country apart for 52 years. Every legal scholar, every Democrat, every Republican, liberal, conservative, they all wanted this issue to be brought back to the states where the people could vote. And that's what happened. Now, Ohio, the vote was somewhat liberal. Kansas, the vote was somewhat liberal, much more liberal than people would have thought. But each individual state is voting. It's the vote of the people now. It's not tied up in the federal government. I did a great service in doing it. It took courage to do it. And the Supreme Court had great courage in doing it. And I give tremendous credit to
and
those
it's the
6
right way,
justices.
is to make it a state
state
thing.
in this country where it is legal to kill a baby after it's born. Madam Vice President, I want to get your response.
Minnesota,
to
I believe, has
Well,
that.
as I said, you're going to hear
That's
a bunch
how
of lies,
our
and that's not actually a
situation
surprising
here was
fact.
set up by states.
Let's understand how we got here.
It's not a lie.
Donald Trump
It's not a lie, and
3
that
members
bitch
of
is
the
a
United
liar.
States Supreme Court with the intention that they would undo the protections of Roe v. Wade. And they did exactly as he intended. And now in over 20 states, there are Trump abortion bans, which make it criminal for a doctor or nurse to provide health care. In one state, it provides prison for life. Trump abortion bans that make no exception even for rape and incest, which
but they're not his
understand what
bans,
that
or the
means.
bans of the states.
A survivor of a crime of violation to their body does not have the right to make a decision about what happens to their body next. That is immoral. And
killing a baby at 8 or 9 months is immoral, bitch.
Or deeply held beliefs.
And this is a woman, by the way, who has no children. Just hold that. And she's talking smack about other women who don't want to kill their babies. And I'm not saying that not having children is bad, but just remember,
this is what people want.
She is not
pregnant women who want to carry a pregnancy to term,
eat your children.
suffering from a miscarriage, being denied care in an emergency room because the healthcare providers are afraid they might go to jail, and she's bleeding out in a car in the parking lot.
No,
she didn't
that's
want
not
that.
happening.
Her husband
Minnesota
didn't want
has
that.
abortion up to
A
birth.
12 or 13-year-old survivor of incest.
Minnesota
Forced to
lost
carry
its
a
soul,
pregnancy
sadly.
to term.
Whether or
They don't
not
want
a doctor will do it is a different
And I
story.
pledge to
But
you,
there's no bans
when
on it.
Congress passes a bill
And
to put
same
back
with California,
in place the protections
Washington,
of Roe v.
Oregon.
Wade, as President of the United States, I will proudly sign it into law. But understand,
You can't
if
sign
Donald
it into
Trump
law
were to be
federally.
reelected, he will
It's
sign a
states'
national
rights.
abortion ban. Understand, in his Project 2025, there would
He
be a
doesn't
national
have Project
abortion, a
2025,
monitor
you
that would be
liar.
monitoring your pregnancies, your miscarriages. I think the American people believe
Monitor them?
that certain freedoms,
Oh
in
my God.
particular the freedom to make decisions
Wow.
about one's own body, should not be made by the government.
Thank you, Vice President
Okay, but you
Harris.
just said you were going to
There she
make
goes
it. You
again.
are the
It's a
government.
lie. I'm not signing a ban.
That
and
was
there's no reason to
interesting.
sign a ban
Government shouldn't make
because
decisions
we've
about your body,
gotten
but you
what
better get the
everybody
fucking
wanted.
injection if you want a
Democrats,
job.
Republicans,
But I'm
and
going to make a
everybody
law
else,
as soon as I
and
come in
every
saying
legal scholar
what's going to
wanted it to be
happen.
brought back into the states, and the states are voting, and it may take a little time, but for 52 years, this issue has torn our country apart, and they've wanted it back in the states. And I did something that nobody thought was possible. The states are now voting. What she says is an absolute lie. And as far as the abortion ban, no, I'm not in favor of abortion ban, but it doesn't matter because this issue has now been taken over by the states.
Would you veto a national abortion ban if it came
Well,
to
I
your
won't
desk?
have to because, again, two things. Number one, she said she'll go back to Congress. She'll never get the vote. It's impossible for her to get the vote, especially now with the 50-50, and essentially 50-50 in both Senate and the House. She's not going to get the vote. She can't get the vote. She won't even come close to it. So it's just talk. You know what it reminds me of? When they said they're going to get student loans terminated, and it ended up being a total catastrophe. The student loans, and then her, I think probably her boss, if you call him a boss, he spends all his time on the beach. But look, her boss went out and said, we'll do it again. We'll do it a different way. And he went out, got rejected again by the Supreme Court. So all these students got taunted with this whole thing about this whole idea, and how unfair that would have been. Part of the reason they lost to the millions and millions of people that had to pay off their student loans. They didn't get it for free, but they were saying it's the same way that they talked about that they talk about abortion.
But if I could just get a yes or no, because your running mate, J.D. Vance, has said that you would veto it if it did come to your desk.
Well, I didn't discuss it with J.D. In all fairness, J.D., and I don't mind if he has a certain view, but I think he was speaking for me, but I really didn't. Look, we don't have to discuss it because she'd never be able to get it, just like she couldn't get student loans. They couldn't get student loans. They didn't even come close to getting student loans. They taunted young people and a lot of other people that had loans. They can never get this approved. So it doesn't matter what she says about going to Congress. Well, wonderful. Let's go to Congress. Do it. But the fact is that for years they wanted to get it out of Congress and out of the federal government, and we did something that everybody said couldn't be done. And now you have a vote of the people on abortion.
Vice President Harris, want to give you your time to respond, but I do want to ask,
and there can't be a national ban if it's in the states right now. So it's a moot point.
Reinstating the protections of Roe v. Wade, and as you rightly mentioned, nowhere in America is a woman carrying a pregnancy to term and asking for an abortion. That is not happening.
Minnesota.
It's insulting to the women of America. And understand what has been happening under Donald Trump's abortion bans. Couples
They're not Trump's abortion bans.
And dream of having a family are being denied IVF treatments.
No, they're not.
No, they're not. That is a lie.
Working women who are working 1 or 2 jobs, who can barely
because they can't afford food, bitch, because your inflation.
Have to travel to another state to get on a plane sitting next to strangers to go and get the health care she needs. Barely can afford to do it, and what you are putting her through.
This is their favorite subject, Roe v. Wade.
And the people
they're
of
abortion
America
lovers. They're baby killers.
The majority of Americans believe in a woman's right to make decisions about her own body, and that is why in every state where this issue has been on the ballot, in red and blue states both, the people of America have voted for freedom.
Vice President Harris,
Excuse me, I have to respond. Another lie. It's another lie. I have been a leader on IVF, which is fertilization. The IVF, I have been a leader. In fact, when they got a very negative decision on IVF from the Alabama courts, I saw the people of Alabama and the legislature 2 days later voted it in. I've been a leader on it. They know that, and everybody else knows it. I have been a leader on fertilization, IVF. And the other thing, you should ask, will she allow abortion in the 8th month, 9th month, 7th month?
Come on.
Okay, would you do that? Why don't you ask her that question?
Why don't you answer
That's
the
problem.
question? Would you
because
veto?
under Roe v.
Answer
Wade,
the question, would you veto?
you could do abortions in the 7th month, the 8th month, the 9th month,
not true.
and probably after
It is
birth.
true.
Just look
It
at
is
the
true.
governor, former
100.
governor of Virginia. The governor of Virginia said, we put the baby aside, and then we determine what we want to do with the baby.
President Trump, thank you.
We're going to turn now to immigration and border security. We know it's an issue that's important to Republicans, Democrats, voters across the board in this country. Vice President Harris, you were tasked by President Biden with getting to the root causes
we got
of
a
migration
libtard
from
in the
Central
room.
America. We know that illegal border crossings reached a record high in the Biden administration. This past June, President Biden imposed tough new asylum restrictions. We know the numbers since then have dropped significantly. But my question to you tonight is, why did the administration wait until 6 months before the election to act? And would you have done anything differently from President Biden on this?
So I'm the only person on this stage who has prosecuted transnational criminal organizations for the trafficking of guns, drugs, and human beings. And let me say that the United States Congress, including some of the most conservative members of the United States Senate, came up with a border security bill which I supported. And that bill would have put 1,500 more border agents on the border to help those folks who are working there right now overtime trying to do their job. It would have allowed us to stem the flow of fentanyl coming into the United States. I know there are so many families watching tonight who have been personally affected by the surge of fentanyl in our country. That bill would have put more resources to allow us to prosecute transnational criminal organizations for trafficking in guns, drugs, and human beings. But you know what happened?
And again,
to
Trump
that
had
bill?
nothing to do with that. He hasn't been
Donald
president
Trump
for
got
4
on the
years.
phone,
That's
called
on
up
you,
some folks
Kamala.
in
You're in
Congress and
power.
said, "Kill
You
the
can
bill." And
change
you know
it
why?
anytime.
Because he'd prefer to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem. And understand,
What are you
this
talking
comes
about?
at
You
a
run.
time
You are a
where
problem.
the people of our country
She runs on
actually need
platitudes.
a
I mean-
leader who engages in solutions, who actually addresses the problems at hand. But what we have in the former president is someone who would prefer to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem. And I'll tell you something, he's going to talk about immigration a lot tonight, even when it's not the subject that is being raised. And I'm going to actually do something really
it's a
unusual,
huge
and I'm going
problem.
to invite you to attend one of Donald Trump's rallies, because it's a really interesting thing to watch. You will see
What a
during the
bitch.
course of his rallies, he talks about fictional characters like Hannibal Lecter. He will talk about windmills cause cancer. And what
They
you
do.
will also notice is that people start leaving his rallies early out of
No, they don't.
exhaustion and boredom. And I will tell you, the one thing you will not hear him
Wow, talk about
is you.
projection.
You will not hear him talk about your needs, your dreams, and your desires.
That's all he
And I'll
talks
tell you,
about.
I believe you
That's all he
deserve
talks
a
about.
president who actually
woman
puts
is
you
crazy.
first. And I
She's
pledge
never
to you
seen a
that I
Trump
will.
rally.
Vice President Harris, thank you. President Trump, on that point, I want to get your response.
Well, I would like to respond.
Let me just ask, though, why did you try to kill that bill, and successfully so? That would have put thousands of additional agents and officers on the border.
First, let me respond
Bad
as to
bill.
the
Please.
rallies. She said people start leaving. People don't go to her rallies. There's no reason to go. And the people that do go, she's bussing them in and paying them to be there.
True.
And then showing them in a different light. So she can't talk about that. People don't leave my rallies. We have the biggest rallies, the most incredible rallies in the history of politics. That's because people want to take their country back. Our country is being lost. We're a failing nation. And it happened 3.5 years ago. And what's going on here, you're going to end up in World War III, just to go into another subject. What they have done to our country by allowing these millions and millions of people to come into our country, and look at what's happening to the towns all over the United States. And a lot of towns don't want to talk. It's not going to be Aurora or Springfield. A lot of towns don't want to talk about it because they're so embarrassed by it. In Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people that live there.
True
And this
story.
is what's happening in our country, and it's a shame. As far as rallies are concerned, as far as the reason they go is they like what I say. They want to bring our country back. They want to make America great again. It's a very simple phrase, make America great again. She's destroying this country, and if she becomes president, this country doesn't have a chance of success. Not only success, we'll end up being Venezuela on steroids.
I just want to clarify here. You bring up Springfield, Ohio, and ABC News did reach out to the city manager there. He told us there have been no credible reports of specific claims of pets being harmed, injured, or abused by individuals within the immigrant community.
Yeah, did they tell you that? Because there's tons of
The
video.
people on television say my dog was taken and used for food. So maybe he said that, and maybe that's a good thing to say for a city manager.
I'm not taking this from
but
television.
But the people
I'm
on
taking it from
television
the city
saying
manager.
their dog was eaten by the people that went there.
Again, the Springfield city manager says there's no evidence of that. Vice
We'll
President
find
Harris,
out.
I'll let you respond to the rest of what you've heard.
You talk about extreme.
Extreme. Oh my God.
This is, I think, one of the reasons
OMG,
why
Kamala.
in this election, I actually have the endorsement of 200 Republicans who have formerly worked with President Bush, Mitt Romney, and John McCain.
Oh, they're all
including the
rhino
endorsement
globalists.
Of
Surprise.
former Vice President Dick Cheney and Congress member
Dick
Liz
Cheney, a warlord. Yeah, a
And
warmonger.
If you want to really know
Fraud.
the inside track on who the former president is, if he didn't make it clear already, just ask people who have worked with him. His former
we
chief
can
of
ask
staff,
people
a
who worked with
four-star
you, and they
general,
say you're a
has said
bitch.
he has contempt for the Constitution of the United States. His former national security advisor has said he is dangerous and unfit. His former
Whatever.
Secretary of Defense has said the nation, the republic, would never survive another Trump term. And when we listen to this kind of rhetoric, when the issues that affect the American people are not being addressed, I think the choice is clear in this election.
President Trump, I'll give you a quick minute to respond here.
Thank you, because when I hear that, see, I'm a different kind of a person. I fired most of those people, not so graciously. They did bad things or a bad job. I fired them. They never fired one person. They didn't fire anybody having to do with Afghanistan and the Taliban and the 13 people who's were just killed, viciously and violently killed. And I got to know the parents and the family. They didn't fire. They should have fired all those generals, all those top people, because that was one of the most incompetently handled situations anybody has ever seen. So when somebody does a bad job, I fire him. And you take a guy like Esper. He was no good. I fired him. So he writes a book. Another one writes a book. Because with me, they can write books. With nobody else can they. But they have done such a poor job, and they never fire anybody. Look at the economy. Look at the inflation. They didn't fire any of their economists. They have the same people. That's a good way not to have books written about you. But just to finish, I got more votes than any Republican in history by far. In fact, I got more votes than any president, sitting president, in history by far.
Let me continue on immigration. It was what you wanted to talk about earlier, so let's get back to your deportation proposal that the vice president has reacted to as well. President Trump, you call this the largest domestic deportation operation in the history of our country. You say you would use the National Guard. You say if things get out of control, you'd have no problem using the U.S. military.
Police, yes.
You also said you would use local police. How would you deport 11 million undocumented immigrants? I know you believe that number is much higher. Take us through this. What does this look like? Will authorities be going door to door in this country?
Yeah, it is much higher because of them. They allowed criminals, many, many millions of criminals. They allowed terrorists. They allowed common street criminals. They allowed people to come in, drug dealers, to come into our country. And they're now in the United States and told by their countries like Venezuela, don't ever come back or we're going to kill you. Do you know that crime in Venezuela and crime in countries all over the world is way down? You know why? Because they've taken their criminals off the street and they've given them to her to put into our country. And this will be one of the greatest mistakes in history for them to allow, and I think they probably did it because they think they're going to get votes, but it's not worth it because they're destroying the fabric of our country by what they've done. There's never been anything done like this at all. They've destroyed the fabric of our country. Millions of people let in, and all over the world, crime is down all over the world except here. Crime here is up and through the roof. Despite their fraudulent statements that they made, crime in this country is through the roof. And we have a new form of crime. It's called migrant crime. And it's happening at levels that nobody thought possible.
President Trump, as you know, the FBI says overall violent crime is actually coming down in this country.
Because the blue cities stopped reporting their numbers.
Statements.
Yep, they've stopped reporting their numbers.
They didn't include the cities with the worst crime.
There
it
you
was
go.
a fraud. Just like
Woohoo!
their number of 818,000 jobs that they said they created turned out to be a fraud.
President Trump, thank you. I'll let you respond.
That's right.
Well,
They
I
didn't
think
create
this
any of
is
those
true, too.
jobs.
Coming from
This is so
someone who has been
rich. This is
prosecuted
so rich.
Oh, here we go. The felon talk.
Here we
national
go.
security crimes, economic crimes, election interference, has been found liable for sexual assault, and his next big
Here we
court
go.
appearance is in November at his own criminal sentencing. And let's be clear, where each person stands on the issue of what is important about respect for the rule of law and respect for law enforcement. The former vice president called for defunding federal law enforcement, 45,000 agents, get this, on the day after he was arraigned on 34 felony counts.
Fake,
So
false
let's talk
felony
about
accounts
what is
that are
important in
bullshit.
this race.
I
It is
hope Donald
important
Trump
that
has
we
a good
move
answer for
forward,
this.
that we
Because
turn
it's
the
all
page
fraud,
on
bullshit,
this
political
same
attacks.
old tired rhetoric and address
You're tired
the
rhetoric.
needs of the American people. Address what we need to do about the housing shortage, which I have a plan for.
There is no
Address
housing
what we
shortage.
must do to support our small businesses. Address bringing down the price of groceries. But
How will
frankly,
you do
the
that?
American people
You
are
raised the
exhausted
price of
with
groceries.
this same old tired
Kamala,
playbook.
you
President
raised
Harris,
those
thank you.
prices.
Excuse me. Every one of those cases was started by them against their political opponent. And I'm
That's
winning
right.
most of them, and I will win the rest on appeal. And you saw that with the decision that came down just recently from the Supreme Court. I'm winning most of them. But those are cases, it's called weaponization. Never happened in this country. They weaponized the Justice Department. Every one of those cases was involved with the DOJ, from Atlanta and Fani Willis to the Attorney General of New York and the DA in New York. Every one of those cases. And then they say, oh, he's a criminal. They're the ones that made them go after me. By the way, Joe Biden was found essentially guilty on the documents case. And what happened in my documents case? They said, oh, that's the toughest of them all.
They
A
planted the
complete
documents.
and total victory. 2 months ago, it was thrown out. It's weaponization, and they used it, and it's never happened in this country. They used it to try and win an election. They're fake cases.
President Trump, thank you. A really quick response here, Vice President Harris, on this notion of weaponization of the Justice Department.
Well, let's talk about extreme and understand the context
Yeah,
in which
you
this
are
election in
extreme.
2024 is taking
She
place.
totally got, they gave her
United
the
States
questions
Supreme
beforehand.
Court
They totally gave it to
recently
her.
ruled that the former president would essentially be immune from any misconduct if he were to enter
Yeah,
the
that
White
means
House
Joe
again.
Biden too, bitch.
Understand, this is someone who has openly said he would terminate.
She's called him
I'm quoting,
extreme 4
terminate
times now.
The Constitution of the United
Because
States.
she's
That
extreme.
he would weaponize the Department of Justice
She's the
against
extreme
his
one.
political enemies. Someone who has openly expressed disdain
Yeah,
for
good.
members of our military. Understand
No, he
what it
hasn't.
would mean if Donald Trump were back in the White House with no guardrails. Because certainly we know now the court won't stop him. We know J.D. Vance is not going to stop him. It's up to the American people
Vice
to
President
stop
Harris.
him.
Who's going to stop you,
Vice
bitch?
President Harris, in your last run for president.
This is the one that weaponized, not me. She weaponized. I probably took a bullet to the head because of the things that they say about me. They talk about democracy. I'm a threat to democracy. They're the threat to democracy with a
President
fake
Trump.
Russia investigation
We do have a lot to
that
get.
went nowhere.
We have a lot to get to. Lindsay?
Vice President Harris, in your last run for president, you said you wanted to ban fracking. Now you don't.
Yeah.
You wanted mandatory government buyback programs for assault weapons. Now your campaign says you don't. You supported decriminalizing border crossings. Now you're taking a harder line. I know you.
Everyone's
say that your
forgetting that these
values
people
have
tried
not
to have
changed.
Donald Trump
so then why
assassinated.
have so many of your policy positions changed?
So my values have not changed, and I'm going to discuss every one of the, at least every point that you've made. But in particular, let's talk about fracking because we're here in Pennsylvania. I made that very clear in 2020. I will not ban fracking. I
He
have not
lies.
banned fracking as
You
Vice
said you were
President
going to
of the
ban
United States. In
fracking, you
fact,
lying
I was
cow.
the tie-breaking vote on the Inflation Reduction Act, which opened new leases for fracking.
Which was basically the Green
My
New Deal.
position is that
That's the Green
we
New Deal.
have got to invest in diverse sources of energy so we reduce our reliance on foreign oil. We have had the largest increase in domestic oil production in history.
False.
Because of an approach that recognizes
Very
that we
false.
cannot
That is
over
very
rely
false.
on
They
foreign
had.
oil.
She is such an outright
As to
liar.
my values,
They
let me tell
literally
you,
had
I
to
grew up
import
a
oil.
middle-class kid, raised by
I
a
think the
hardworking mother
moderator should be fact checking
who
them.
worked
To
and
be honest,
saved
I think that
and
would
was
be
able
more
to buy our first home when I was a teenager.
Well, the
Worthwhile.
moderator's
The
not
values I
fact
bring
checking
to
her
the
at
importance
all.
of home ownership, knowing not everybody got handed $400 million on a silver platter and then filed bankruptcy 6 times, is a value that I bring to
He
my
did not
work
get
to
handed
say
$400
we are
million.
going to work with the private sector and home builders
Wow,
to
what a
increase
bitch.
3 million homes, increase by 3 million homes by the end of my first term. My work that is related to having a friend when I was in high school who was sexually assaulted by her stepfather. And my
Oh,
focus then
come on.
protecting
Listen to
women
this
and
part
children
too
from violent
simply.
crime is based on a value that is deeply grounded
She's
in the
so
importance
atrocious.
of standing up for those who are
She's
most
so
vulnerable.
manipulative.
My work that is about protecting Social Security
Well,
and
she's
Medicare
female.
is based on long-standing work that I have done, protecting
That's why I'll never
seniors
vote
from
for her.
scams.
Sorry, but
My
I don't
values
say
Same-
this
I'm
about
the
every
same way. I'm
female.
the same way.
But she's a
And what is
manipulator.
important
She's a
is that
manipulative
there is a
female.
president who actually brings values and a
She rules by
perspective
emotions,
that is
and
about lifting
we can't have that in
people
government.
up
No.
and not beating people down and name calling. The true
You
measure
just
of the
name call
leader
Trump all the
is the
time. What are you
leader
talking
who
about?
actually
You've just called him
understands
radical.
that strength is not in beating people down, it's in lifting people up.
And extreme.
I intend to be
And
that
extreme.
president.
President Trump, your
Well, first of
response?
all, I wasn't given $400 million. I wish I was. My father was a Brooklyn builder, Brooklyn, Queens, and a great father, and I learned a lot from him. But I was given a fraction of that, a tiny fraction, and I built it into many, many billions of dollars, many, many billions. And when people see it, they are even surprised. So we don't have to talk about that. Fracking, she's been against it for 12 years. Defund the police. She's been against that forever.
Yes, you
She
have.
gave all
You
that
literally
stuff up
bailed people out of
very
jail,
wrongly,
Kamala,
very
for defund the
horribly,
police.
And everybody's laughing at it, okay? They're all laughing at it. She gave up at least 12 and probably 14 or 15 different policies. Like, she was big on defund the police. In Minnesota, she went out. Wait a minute. I'm talking now. If you don't mind, please.
I'm
Does that
speaking.
sound familiar?
I'm speaking.
She went out.
That was
She
awesome.
went out in Minnesota and wanted to let criminals that killed people, that burned down Minneapolis, she went out and raised money to get them out of jail. She
Yes,
did
she
things
did.
that
She
nobody would
tweeted
ever
about
think
it.
of. Now she wants to do transgender operations on illegal aliens that are in prison. This is a radical left
She also said that.
liberal that would do this.
Yes, she did.
She wants to confiscate your guns, and she will never allow fracking in Pennsylvania. If she won the election, fracking in Pennsylvania will end on day one. Just to finish one thing so important in my opinion. So I got the oil business going like nobody has ever done before. When they took over, they got rid of it, started getting rid of it, and the prices were going up the roof. They immediately let these guys go to where they were. I would have been 5 times, 4 times, 5 times higher, because you're talking about 3.5 years ago. They got it up to where I was because they had no choice, because the prices of energy were quadrupling and doubling. You saw what happened to gasoline. So they said, let's go back to Trump. But if she won the election, the day after that election, they'll go back to destroying our country, and oil will be dead, fossil fuel will be dead. We'll go back to windmills, and we'll go back to solar, where they need a whole desert to get some energy to come out of. You ever see a solar plant? By the way, I'm a big fan of solar, but they take 400,
President
500 acres of desert
President
soil.
Trump, we have a
These
lot
are
of
not good
issues
things
that we
for the
have to get
environment
to.
that
We're
she
out of time.
understands.
Thank you.
Lindsay, thank you. We have an election in just 56 days. And I want to talk about the peaceful transfer of power, which, of course, we all know is a cornerstone of our democracy, and the role of a president in a moment of crisis. Mr. President, on January 6th, you told your supporters to march to the Capitol. You said you would be right there with them. The country and the world saw what played out at the Capitol that day, the officers coming under attack. Aides in the West
Nancy
Wing say you watched
Pelosi
it
set
unfold
up.
on television off the Oval Office. You did send out tweets, but it was more than 2 hours before you sent out that video message telling your supporters to go home. Is there anything you regret about what you did on that day?
You just said a thing that isn't covered. Peacefully and patriotically, I said during my speech, not later on. peacefully and patriotically. And nobody on the other side was killed. Ashley Babbitt was shot by an out-of-control police officer that should have never, ever shot her. It's a disgrace. But we didn't do this group of people that have been treated so badly. I ask, what about all the people that are pouring into our country and killing people that she allowed to pour in? She was the border czar, remember that. She was the border czar. She doesn't want to be called the border czar because she's embarrassed by the border. In fact, she said at the beginning, oh, I'm surprised you're not talking about the border yet. That's because she knows what a bad job they've done. What about those people? When are they going to be prosecuted? When are these people from countries all over the world, not just South America, they're coming in from all over the world, David, all over the world, and crime rates are down all over the world because of it.
But let me just
when
ask
are those, David, when are those people going to be prosecuted? When are the people that burned down Minneapolis going to be prosecuted? Or in Seattle, they went into Seattle, they took over a big percentage of the city of Seattle. When are those people going to be prosecuted?
But let me just ask
you. You might ask her that question.
You were the president. You were watching it unfold on television. It's a very simple question as we move forward toward another election. Is there anything you regret about what you did on that day? Yes or no?
I had nothing to do with that other than they asked me to make a speech. I showed up for a speech. I said, I think it's going to be big. I went to Nancy Pelosi and the mayor of Washington, D.C., and the mayor put it back in writing, as you know. I said, you know, this is going to be a very big rally or whatever you want to call it. And again, it wasn't done by me. It was done by others. I said, I'd like to give you 10,000 National Guard or soldiers. They rejected me. Nancy Pelosi rejected me. It was just 2 weeks ago. Her daughter has a tape of her saying she is fully responsible for what happened. They want to get rid of that tape. It would have never happened if Nancy Pelosi and the mayor of Washington did their jobs. I wasn't responsible for security. Nancy Pelosi was responsible.
That's right.
She didn't do her job.
She turned it down, and she did it on purpose. It was a setup.
Former Speaker Pelosi, but I do want Vice President Harris to respond here.
I was at the Capitol on January 6th. I was the vice president-elect. I was also an acting senator. I was there. And on that day, the president of the United States incited a violent mob.
No, he didn't. That's
to
a lie.
attack our nation's capital, to desecrate our nation's capital.
Oh, she's doing. Do you see what she does? She does the emotional plea. She does the dramatic Shakespearean fucking dialogue, and she does it horribly.
Has been indicted and impeached for exactly that reason. But this is not an isolated situation.
He wasn't indicted.
Let's remember,
he was not indicted.
He was impeached.
Where there was a mob of people carrying tiki torches.
And he denounced them, bitch. And probably half of them were FBI agents.
The president then at the time say there were fine people on each side. Let's remember that when it came to the Proud Boys, a militia, the former president said, stand back and stand by. So for everyone watching who remembers what January 6th was,
don't get involved. That's what that meant.
So what?
You don't have to go back. Let's not go back. We're not going back.
Going back to
it's
where?
Time to turn the page.
Yeah,
and if
on your
was
presidency.
A bridge too far for you, well, there is a place in our campaign for you to stand.
Kamala Harris imprisoned over 1,000 people without due evidence in California.
Of law.
Thank you, Marla.
And she kept people in prison longer than their sentences because of the labor program.
Approach that is about attacking the foundations of our democracy because you don't like the outcome. And be clear on that point. Donald Trump, the candidate, has said in this election there will be a bloodbath if this and
on
the
economy
election is not to his liking.
The economical bloodbath.
Let's turn the page on this. Let's not
Actually,
go
it was
back.
about car manufacturing.
Let's chart a course
bloodbath
for
statement.
the future and not go backwards to the past.
Let me just follow up here.
It was a different term, and it was a term that related to energy because they have destroyed our energy business. That was where bloodbath was. Also, on Charlottesville, that story has been, as you would say, debunked. Laura Ingraham, Sean Hannity, Jesse, all of these people, they covered it. If they go an extra sentence, they will see it was perfect. It was debunked in almost every newspaper, but they still bring it up, just like they bring 2025 up. They bring all of this stuff up. I ask you this. You talk
Fake
about
and lies.
the Capitol. Why are we allowing these millions of people to come through on the southern border. How come she's not doing anything? And I'll tell you what I would do, and I would be very proud
Trump
to do.
needs to start
I would say
attacking
we would both
her
leave
record
this debate
in California
right now.
and how
I'd
dishonest
like to
she
see
is.
her go
And the
down
moderators are
to
being
Washington,
liars
D.C.
and
during
dishonest.
this
These are
debate 'cause we're
lying
wasting a lot
moderators.
of time.
Why? They haven't lied about
It's so
anything.
bad. It's so ridiculous.
Mm,
Go
All
down
they've
to
done is ask
Washington,
questions.
D.C. and let her sign a bill to
They
close
lied
up
about
the
the
border.
cats.
Because they have the right to do it. They don't need
No,
bills.
they didn't.
They have the right to do it. The
Didn't lie.
president
They-
of the United States, you'll get him out of bed, you'll wake him up
They
at 4
cherry
o'clock in
picked
the
the
afternoon, you'll say,
information.
come on, come
Well,
on
they
down
called
to the office,
the
let's
city
sign a bill."
manager.
If he signs
And
a
he's
bill
got no reports
that
of it,
the
so,
border
I
is
mean, if-
closed, all he has to do is say it to the border
Maybe nobody
patrol, who
reported
are
it.
phenomenal. If they do that, the border
doesn't
is
mean it's
closed.
not happening.
Those people are killing
I agree.
many people, unlike J6.
We talked immigration here tonight. I do want to focus on this next issue to both of you because it really brings us this into focus, truth in these times that we're living in. Mr. President, for 3.5 years after you lost the 2020 election, you repeatedly falsely claimed that you won, many times saying you won in a landslide. In the past couple of weeks leading up to this debate, you have said, quote, you lost
Ben
by a whisker,
Shapiro's fact-checking
that you, quote,
on his
didn't quite
page.
make it, that you came up a little bit short.
I said that?
Are you now acknowledging that you lost in 2020?
No, I don't acknowledge that at all.
But
I
you
said
did
that
say that.
sarcastically.
But
You know
those-
that. It was said, oh, we lost by a whisker. That was said sarcastically. Look, there's so much proof. All you have to do is look at it. And they should have sent it back to the legislatures for approval.
That's right.
I got almost 75 million votes, the most votes any sitting president has ever gotten. I was told if I got
There's
63,
no way they got
which was what I
81
got
million.
in 2016, you
No
can't
way.
be beaten. The election, people should never be thinking about an election as fraudulent. We need two things. We need walls, and we have to have it. We have to have borders, and we have to have good elections. Our
Paper
elections
ballots.
are bad.
Day of.
And
Count them
a lot
up.
of these illegal immigrants coming in, they're trying to get them to vote. They can't even speak English. They don't even know what country they're in practically. And these people are trying to get them to vote. And that's why they're allowing them to come into our country.
I did watch all of these pieces of video.
Cheat,
I
cheat,
didn't
cheat.
detect the sarcasm, lost by a whisker. We didn't quite make it. And we should just point out here as clarification,
So-
and you know this, you and your allies,
I
60
didn't detect
cases.
the
Their
sarcasm.
plan isn't to
Many
get
of
them
the
to
judges
vote.
looked
Their
at
plan
it
is to
and
get
said
them
they
into
said
the
we didn't have
widespread fraud.
standing.
states, the
That's
blue
the other
states.
thing.
They get more
They said
electoral
we
vote.
didn't have standing.
Yes.
A technicality. Can
That's
you
the-
imagine
that's
a
what's
system
happening. It's got
where
nothing to do
a
with
Yes.
person in an election doesn't have standing? The president of the United States doesn't have standing. That's how we lost. If you look at the facts, and I'd love to have you'll do a special on it.
He's correct.
I'll show you Georgia, and I'll show you Wisconsin, and I'll show
All
you
the cases were thrown
Pennsylvania,
out.
and I'll
They
show
were
you-
never taught.
We
They
have
were
so
never
many
heard.
facts and statistics,
No.
but you know what? That doesn't matter because we have to solve the problem that we have right now. That's old news. And the problem that we have right now is we have a nation in decline. And they have
Yeah,
put it
but look
into
at all the
decline.
mass
We have a
voting.
nation that
You know,
is
they.
dying,
I knew
David.
people
Mr.
that got
President,
like
thank
5
you.
ballots
Vice
mailed to
President
their
Oh,
house.
yeah, oh,
to
yeah,
vote.
yeah, yeah.
Like, give me a
Tonight,
break.
He said he didn't say that he lost by a whisker. So he still believes he did not lose the election that was won by President Biden.
Yes,
and
he
yourself.
does, you smarmy prick.
But I do want to ask you about something that's come up in the last couple of days. This was a post from President Trump about this upcoming election just weeks away. He said, when I win, those people who cheated, and then he lists donors, voters, election officials, he says will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law, which will include long-term prison sentences. One of your campaign's top lawyers responded saying, we won't let Donald Trump intimidate us. We won't let him suppress the vote.
Mark
Is that
Elias?
what you believe he's trying to do here?
Donald Trump was fired
Oh,
by
I
81
can't
million
stand
people.
her.
So
No,
let's
he
be
wasn't.
clear about that. And
That's
clearly
like
he
more
is having a
voters
very
than there
difficult
is.
time processing that. But we cannot afford to
Cheater.
have a president of the United States who attempts, as he did in the past, to upend the will of the voters in a free and fair
No,
election.
that's what you
And I'm
did
gonna
by
tell you
cheating.
that I have
He
traveled
didn't
the
try to
world as
upend
Vice
it. He just
President of the
wanted
United
the
States.
counts to be done
And
properly.
world leaders are laughing at Donald Trump.
No, they're
they're
laughing
I've
at
talked
you,
with
you
military
freak.
leaders, some of whom worked with you, and they say you're a disgrace.
Not true.
Oh, do they
And when
really?
you then talk
Fucking
in
bitch.
this way in a presidential debate and deny what over and over again are court cases you have lost because you did in fact lose that election, it leads
No.
one to believe that perhaps we do not have in the candidate to my right the temperament or
Oh,
the
wow.
ability
She's
to not
so
be confused
manipulative.
about fact. That's deeply troubling, and the American
She's
people
so
deserve
manipulative.
better.
I'll give you 1 minute to respond, Mr. President.
Let me just say about world leaders. Viktor Orban, one of the most respected men, they call him a strong man. He's a tough person, smart. Prime Minister of Hungary. They said, why is the whole world blowing up? 3 years ago it wasn't. Why is it blowing up? He said, because you need Trump back as president. They were afraid of him. China was afraid, and I don't like to use the word afraid, but I'm just quoting him. China was afraid of him. North Korea was afraid of him. Look at what's going on with North Korea, by the way. He said Russia was afraid of him. I ended the Nord Stream 2 pipeline, and Biden put it back on day one, but he ended the XL pipeline. The XL pipeline in our country, he ended that. But he let the Russians build a pipeline going all over Europe and heading into Germany, the biggest pipeline in the world. Look, Viktor Orban said it. He said the most respected, most feared person is Donald Trump. We had no problems when Trump was president.
Yeah, but Orban's like the shortest midget in town, you know?
That you saw at a debate just a few months ago, that if he weren't in that debate, he'd be running instead of her. She got no votes. He got 14 million votes. What you did, you talk about a threat to democracy. He got 14 million votes, and they threw him out of office. And you know what? I'll give you a little secret. He hates her. He can't stand her.
He can't stand her.
14 million votes. They threw him out. She got 0 votes. And when she ran, she was the first one to leave because she failed. And now she's running. I don't understand it, but I'm okay with it.
She didn't get voted for. It's a coup. Coup.
She got 0 votes.
Zero votes.
Hostages who are still being held, Americans among them. Vice President Harris, in December, you said, quote, Israel has a right to defend itself, but you added, quote, it matters how, saying international humanitarian law must be respected. Israel must do more to protect innocent civilians. You said that 9 months ago. Now an estimated 40,000 Palestinians are dead. Nearly 100 hostages remain. Just last week, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said there's not a deal in the making. President Biden has not been able to break through the stalemate. How would you do it?
Well, let's understand
This is a tough one for her.
On October 7th,
most of her voters are pro-Palestine.
Hamas, a terrorist organization,
It's half.
slaughtered 1,200 Israelis. Many of them
Yeah, we
young
know
people
that.
who were
It's a
simply
psyop.
attending a concert.
Because
Women were horribly
Israel
raped.
created
And so
Hamas
absolutely,
back in
I
the
said
80s,
then, I
lady.
say now, Israel has a right to defend itself. We would. And how it does so matters. Because it is also true, far too many innocent Palestinians have been killed. Children, mothers. What we know is that this war must end. It must
How are you going to
end
do it?
immediately, and the way it will end is we need a ceasefire deal and we need the hostages out. And so we will continue to work around the clock on that. Work around the clock, also understanding that we must chart a course for a two-state solution. And in that solution, there must be security for the Israeli people and Israel, and in equal measure for the Palestinians. But the one thing I will assure you always, I will always give Israel the ability to defend itself, in particular as it
she's riding the
relates
fence
to Iran and any threat that Iran and its proxies pose to Israel. But we must have a two-state solution where we can rebuild Gaza, where the Palestinians have security, self-determination, and the dignity they so rightly deserve.
President Trump, how would you negotiate with Netanyahu and also Hamas in order to get the hostages out and prevent the killing of more innocent civilians in Gaza?
If I were president, it would have never started. If I were president, Russia would have never, ever, I know Putin very well, he would have never, and there was no threat of it either, by the way, for 4 years, have gone into Ukraine and killed millions of people when you add it up, far worse than people understand what's going on over there. But when she mentions about Israel, all of a sudden, she hates Israel. She wouldn't even meet with Netanyahu when he went to Congress to make a very important speech. She refused to be there because she was at a sorority party of hers. She wanted to go to the sorority party. She hates Israel. If she's president, I believe that Israel will not exist within 2 years from now. And I've been pretty good at predictions, and I hope I'm wrong about that one. She hates Israel. At the same time, in her own way, she hates the Arab population because the whole place is going to get blown up. Arabs,
Jewish people.
They want a war with Iran.
Israel will be
Oh, yeah.
gone.
This has always been their
It would
goal.
have never happened. Iran was broke under Donald Trump. Now Iran has $300 billion because they took off all the sanctions that I had. Iran had no money for Hamas or Hezbollah or any of the 28 different spheres of terror.
I
And
think
are
they feed it
spheres
on
of
purpose
terror,
because they love
horrible
war
terror.
and they want to
They
make
had
money.
no money. It was a big story, and you know it. You covered
None
it
of it
very
makes
well,
any
actually.
sense
They had
logically,
no
but
money
psychotically
for
it
terror.
does.
They were broke. Now they're a rich nation, and now what they're doing is they're spreading that money around. Look at what's happening with the Houthis and Yemen. Look at what's going on in the Middle
Good
East.
point.
This would have
Yeah.
never happened. I will get that settled and fast, and I'll get the war with Ukraine and Russia ended. If I'm president-elect, I'll get it done before even becoming president.
Vice President Harris, he says you hate Israel.
That's absolutely not true. I have my entire career and life supported Israel and the Israeli
really?
people.
You mean
He
fact
knows
check
that.
that
Her
one?
husband's
I'm
Jewish,
checked.
I
To
think.
again divide
Yeah, let's see what
and
Ben
distract
Shapiro says.
from the reality, which is it is very well known that Donald Trump is weak and wrong on national
her
security
husband's
and
Jewish.
foreign policy. It is well known that he admires dictators, wants to be a dictator on day one, according to himself. It is
What are you
well
talking
known
about, a
that
It was a
dictator?
sarcastic
You
comment.
lunatic.
that he can do whatever the hell he wants and go into Ukraine. It is well known that he said when Russia went into Ukraine, it was brilliant.
No,
It
he
is
didn't.
well known he exchanged
He-
love letters with Kim Jong-un.
Love letters.
Love
What are you
letters.
talking
He
about?
said he was going to kill him.
These
He
dictators
said,
and autocrats
he
are
literally put
rooting
him in his
for
place,
you
you
to
lying
be
bitch.
president again because they're so clear. They can manipulate
What
you
about your
with
love letters to
flattery
China?
and favors. And that is why so many military leaders who you have worked with have told me you are a disgrace. That is why
You are nasty.
we
You wanna talk
understand
about
that
name
we
calling.
have to have a president who is not consistently weak and wrong on
Vice
national
President
security,
Harris.
including the importance of upholding
Shut
and
up, lady.
respecting in highest regard our military.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
They're the ones, and she's the one that caused it, that's weak on national security by allowing every nation last month for the year, 168 different countries sending people into our country. Their crime rates are way down. Putin endorsed her last week, said, I hope
Yes,
she
he
wins.
did.
And I think he meant it, because what he's gotten away with is absolutely incredible. It wouldn't have happened with me. The leaders of other countries think that they're weak and incompetent, and they are. They're grossly incompetent. And I just ask one question. Why does Biden go in and kill the Keystone Pipeline and approve the single biggest deal that Russia's ever made, Nord Stream 2, the biggest
Yeah, that
pipeline
sounds
anywhere
really
in the world,
strange.
going to Germany and all over
That is
Europe?
strange.
Because they're weak and they're ineffective. And Biden, by the way,
President
gets paid
Trump,
a lot of money.
Thank you. We have a lot of issues to get to.
We'll be right back with much more of this
They
historic
keep saying that.
ABC
We have a
News
lot of issues.
presidential debate from the
Make it
National
longer.
Constitution Center right here in
Let
Philadelphia.
the people
Back in a
talk.
moment.
I mean, these people are going to run the country for 4 years. I want to hear everything they have to say. I hate this time limit thing.
The ABC News presidential
Time
debate
is
will
money.
continue after this.
Okay, so we're going in. We can have a little chat until. We'll just mute it now. That was really interesting.
I'm reading Twitter comments.
Well, if we go into Ben Shapiro, Muir, Camilla, tell us how bad and mean and orange is Donald Trump. Okay. Megyn Kelly, how the hell is it proper to fact check to say I didn't hear his sarcasm? It's not. Ben Shapiro, the moderators are the story of the evening and it isn't a good story. Megyn Kelly, every single question is about Trump controversies, putting him on the hot seat on them, and then a follow-up to her to let her dump on him for 2 minutes. Jeremy Boring, I, for one, am completely support the idea of a two-state solution, Israel and East Israel. Okay? That's like Germany.
So
I think
the
he's being
memes have already.
sarcastic.
It is. Check out the meme I'm putting up.
Okay, let's pop this one up. My own spells against me. That's funny. Okay, I'm gonna have to. Let me add the.
All right, I'll stop with the memes.
It's okay. There we go. There we are. We got it back up. Perfect. Okay. Well, we'll know when it comes back. I'm trying to see what other. I gotta freshen up people's. What else is saying? What's Megyn Kelly saying now? Election of 1860. Oh, they're going to do a historical presentation of elections.
Ooh.
The pile-on against Trump is so bad and so obvious, this will backfire. And Megyn Kelly says, how many times has Kamala personally insulted Donald Trump? Yeah, it's like a Donald Trump attack, and it's all bullshit and lies, and they know it. They know it. Charlotte, she said, one more fact-checking from ABC. This is the worst anchor pile-on I have ever seen. 3 against 1. Oh my God, the questions to Harris is just a lob to let her shit on J6 for 2 minutes. Oh my goodness. Yeah, it's... I knew it was going to be biased. I did not think that this debate was going to be like a fair one. I mean, ABC is a total mouthpiece for the deep state, and we know that. There's no... Let's see. What does she say? No. I'm trying to see if there's anybody else on Twitter that actually is something worth... Let's see what... Yeah, Jeremy Boring wants Easton. So crazy. Lindsey Graham, the moderators might as well be on the DNC payroll. This is ridiculous. This is the worst moderated debate in history. This is why Kamala refused with Fox, by the way.
Right.
Because she would have got more criticism, and everything is tailored for her to answer easy. That's what I'm noticing.
Well, you saw that report that came out yesterday or today about news coverage that 100% media, mainstream media news coverage on Harris has been 100% positive and 93% negative for Trump.
Jeremy Boring, Kamala Harris has yet to be fact-checked a single time, and she lied over and over and over again. I mean, we fact-checked her as fast as we could. And Mark Hemingway, why is ABC News fact-checking Trump but not Kamala?
Kamala, who is supported by Putin, by the way, right?
Yes.
Didn't he come out for supporting her?
Oh, he loves her laugh. It's infectious, he says. It's infectious like the Black Plague. I can't believe ABC is parroting the disinformation that Kamala Harris had authority over America's border policy. I think
what?
he's being sarcastic.
Say that again?
I think Jeremy Borens is being sarcastic. He says, I can't believe ABC is parroting the disinformation that Kamala Harris had authority over America's border policy. All right, here we go. Presidential debate back on. Let's turn that volume up.
Presidential debate tonight. We're going to continue here, and I want to turn to the war in Ukraine. We're now 2.5 years into this conflict. Mr. President, it has been the position of the Biden administration that we must defend Ukraine from Russia, from Vladimir Putin, to defend their sovereignty, their democracy, that it's in America's best interest to do so, arguing that if Putin wins, he may be emboldened to move even further into other countries. You have said you would solve this war in 24 hours. You said so just before the break tonight. How exactly would you do that? And I want to ask you a very simple question tonight. Do you want Ukraine to win this war?
I want the war to stop. I want to save lives that are being uselessly, people being killed by the millions. It's the millions. It's so much worse than the numbers that you're getting, which are fake numbers. Look, we're in for 250 billion or more because they don't ask Europe, which is a much bigger beneficiary to getting this thing done than we are. They're in for $150 billion less because Biden and you don't have the courage to ask Europe like I did with NATO. They paid billions and billions, hundreds of billions of dollars when I said,
that's because they're all globalists.
Or we're not going to protect you anymore.
They're all on the same side, their side,
like me,
embezzling money
like
through
people.
Ukraine.
But you take a look at what's happening. We're in for 250 to 275 billion. They're into 100 to 150. They should be forced to equalize. With that being said, I want to get the war settled. I know Zelensky very well, and I know Putin very well. I have a good relationship, and they respect your president, okay? They respect me. They don't respect Biden. How would you respect him? Why? For what reason? He hasn't even made a phone call in 2 years to Putin, hasn't spoken to anybody. They don't even try and get it. That is a war that's dying to be settled. I will get it settled before I even become president. If I win, when I'm president-elect, and what I'll do is I'll speak to one, I'll speak to the other, I'll get them together. That war would have never happened. And in fact, when I saw Putin after I left, unfortunately left because our country has gone to hell. But after I left, when I saw him building up soldiers, he did it after I left, I said, oh, he must be negotiating. It must be a good, strong point of negotiation. Well, it wasn't, because Biden had no idea how to talk to him. He had no idea how to stop it. And now you have millions of people dead.
And he's
it's
not
only
making the
getting worse, and it
decisions.
could
Nobody
lead to
even
World War
remembers
III.
he's
Don't
president.
kid yourself, David. We're playing with World War III, and we have a president that we don't even know if he's... Where is our president? We don't even know if he's a president.
And just to clarify
they
here...
threw him out of a campaign like a dog. We don't even know. Is he our president? But we have a president,
Mr. President,
that doesn't know he's alive.
Your time is up. Just to clarify the question, do you believe it's in the U.S. best interest for Ukraine to win this war, yes or no?
I think it's the U.S. best interest to get this war finished and just get it done.
All right.
Negotiate a deal, because we have to stop all of these human lives from being destroyed.
I want to take this to Vice President Harris. I want to get your thoughts on support for Ukraine in this moment, but also
She's
as
just gonna lie.
Commander-in-Chief, if elected, how would you deal with Vladimir Putin?
You guys
and would it
started
be any
this
different
war.
from what we're seeing from President Biden?
They
Well,
had a
first of
peace
all,
deal,
it's
and they said
important
no.
to remind the former president, you're not running against Joe Biden, you're running against me. I believe the reason that Donald
because you
Trump
stole.
says that this
You
war
There's
will
no
stole
daylight
it from
between
him.
them.
24 hours is because he would just give it up.
You stole
And that's not who
it
we
from
are as
Joe
Americans.
Biden.
Let's understand what happened here. I actually met with Zelensky a few days before Russia invaded, tried through force to change territorial boundaries, to defy one of the most important international rules and norms, which is the importance of sovereignty and territorial integrity. And I met with President Zelensky. I shared with him American
Is that why
intelligence
NATO is
about how
moving
he
and
could defend
encroaching
himself.
Russia?
Days later, I went to NATO's eastern flank, to Poland and Romania. And
Yeah, she
through
did
the
not.
work that I and others did, we brought 50
Didn't you say
countries
she'd
together
never been to Europe?
support Ukraine in its righteous defense.
When they asked her
and
about the border?
because of our support, because of the air defense, the ammunition, the artillery, the javelins, the Abrams tanks that we have provided, Ukraine stands as an independent and free country. If
No,
Donald
they're
Trump were
slaughtered.
They're getting
Putin would be
destroyed.
sitting in Kyiv
They're
right now.
slaughtered.
Over
And
a whole
500,000
generation of men are
Ukrainians have been
dead.
killed.
Putin's agenda is not just about Ukraine. Understand why the European allies and our NATO allies are so thankful that you are no longer president, and that we
So they could go in and
understand the
embezzle
importance
money
of
in
the
Ukraine.
greatest
That actually
military
may be
alliance the world
true
has ever
about
known, which is
NATO.
NATO.
Because he wanted
And
to
what we have
defund
done
NATO.
to preserve the ability of Zelensky and the Ukrainians to fight for their independence. Otherwise, Putin would be sitting in Kyiv with his eyes on the rest of Europe, starting with Poland. And why don't you tell the 800,000 Polish Americans right here in Pennsylvania how quickly you would give up for the sake of favor and what you think is a friendship.
He wasn't going to give
with
up.
what
He's
is known to be
stopping.
a dictator who would eat you for lunch.
Wow, she's such a liar.
Vice President Harris, thank you. We've heard from both of you on Ukraine tonight. Afghanistan came up in the last hour. I wanted her to respond to something
right
you
here.
said earlier.
Boris
and
Johnson flown
please,
to Kiev
I'll
to
give you a minute
talk
here.
Zelensky out of a peace
Putin
deal.
would be sitting
That's
in
true.
Moscow, and he wouldn't have lost 300,000 men and women,
true
but he would
stuff.
have been sitting in Moscow. Quiet, please. He would have been sitting in Moscow, much happier than he is right now. But eventually, you know, he's got a thing that other people don't have. He's got nuclear weapons. They don't ever talk about that. He's got nuclear weapons. Nobody ever thinks about that. And eventually, maybe he'll use them, and maybe he hasn't been that threatening, but he does have that. Something we don't even like to talk about. Nobody likes to talk about it. But just so you understand, they sent her to negotiate peace before this war started. 3 days later, he went in and he started the war because everything they said was weak and stupid. They said the wrong things. That war should have never started. She was the emissary. They sent her in to negotiate with Zelensky and Putin, and she did. And the war started 3 days later. And that's the kind of talent we have with her. She's worse than Biden. In my opinion, I think he's the worst president in the history of our country. She goes down as the worst vice president in the history of our country. But let me tell you something. She is a horrible negotiator. They sent her in to negotiate. As soon as they left, Putin did the invasion.
President Trump, thank you. You did bring up something. You said she went to negotiate with Vladimir Putin. Vice President Harris, have you ever met Vladimir Putin? Can you clarify tonight?
Yet again, I said it at the beginning of this debate, you're going to hear a bunch of lies coming from this fellow. And that is another one. When I went to meet with President Zelensky, I've now met with him over 5 times. The reality is it has been about standing as America always should, as a leader upholding international rules and norms, as a leader who shows strength, understanding that the alliances we have around the world are dependent on our ability to look out for our friends and not favor our enemies because you adore strongmen instead of caring about democracy. And that is very much what is at stake here. The President of the United States is commander-in-chief. And the American people have a right to rely on a president who understands the significance of America's role and responsibility in terms of ensuring that there is stability and ensuring we stand up for our principles and not sell them for the benefit of personal flattery.
We've talked about Ukraine and Vladimir Putin. I do want to talk about Afghanistan. It came up in the first hour of this debate. I want to move on to Afghanistan.
Stoltenberg said Trump did the most amazing thing I've ever seen. He got these countries, the 28 countries at the time, to pay up. He said, I've never seen. He's the head of NATO. He said, I've never seen. For years, we were paying almost all of NATO. We were being ripped off by European nations, both on trade and on NATO. I got them to pay up by saying one of the statements you made before, if you don't pay, we're not going to protect you. Otherwise, we would have never gotten it. He said it was one of the most incredible jobs that he's ever seen done.
Thank you. I want to turn to Afghanistan. It came up in the first hour of the debate, and we witnessed a poignant moment today on Capitol Hill, honoring the soldiers who died in the chaotic withdrawal from Afghanistan. I do want to ask the Vice President, do you believe you bear any responsibility in the way that withdrawal played out?
Well, I will tell you, I agreed with President Biden's decision to pull out of Afghanistan. 4 presidents said they would, and Joe Biden did. And as a result, America's taxpayers are not paying the $300
Trump had a plan to withdraw.
That endless
war. Because they wanted to go.
They knew
Ukraine was going to happen. They know all these
United
wars are going to
States
happen.
military who is in active duty in a combat zone in any war zone around the world the first time this century. But let's understand how we got to where we are. Donald Trump, when he was president, negotiated one of the weakest deals you can imagine. He calls himself
give me a
deal
break.
maker. Even his national security advisor said it was a weak, terrible deal. And here's how it went down.
Afghanistan,
he bypassed the Afghan government.
Okay.
He negotiated directly with a terrorist organization called the Taliban. The negotiation involved the Taliban getting
who we're sending money to every month, by the way.
Taliban terrorists released. And get
you're
this.
funding them.
This. And the president at the time invited the Taliban to Camp David.
So what?
A place
of
for
a peace
storied
deal.
significance for us as Americans. A place
give me
where
a
we
break.
honor the importance of American diplomacy, where we invite and receive respected world leaders. And this,
considering America created the Taliban,
invited them
I mean, really,
to Camp David because he does not again appreciate the role and responsibility of the President of the United States to be commander-in-chief with a level of respect. And this gets back to the point of how he has consistently disparaged and demeaned members of our military, fallen soldiers, and the work that we must do to uphold the strength and the respect of the United States of America around the world.
Vice President Harris, thank you. President Trump, your response to her saying that you began the negotiations with the Taliban.
So if you take a look at that period of time, the Taliban was killing our soldiers, a lot of them, with snipers. And I got involved with the Taliban because the Taliban was doing the killing. That's the fighting force within Afghanistan. They don't bother doing that because, they deal with the wrong people all the time. But I got involved. And Abdul is the head of the Taliban. He is still the head of the Taliban. And I told Abdul, don't do it anymore. You do it anymore, you're going to have problems. And he said, why do you send me a picture of my house? I said, you're going to have to figure that out, Abdul. And for 18 months, we had nobody killed. We did have an agreement negotiated by Mike Pompeo. It was a very good agreement. The reason it was good, we were getting out. We would have been out faster than them, but we wouldn't have lost the soldiers. We wouldn't have left many Americans behind, and we wouldn't have left $85 billion worth of brand new, beautiful military equipment behind. And just to finish, they blew it. The agreement said you have to do this, and they didn't do it. They didn't do it. The agreement was terminated by us because they didn't do what they were supposed to do.
I want to move on.
And these people did the worst withdrawal, and in my opinion, the most embarrassing moment in the history of our country. And by the way, that's why Russia attacked Ukraine, because they saw how incompetent she and her boss are.
President Trump, thank you. I want to move on now to race and politics in this country.
Oh,
Mr. President,
why
you
do we
recently said
have
of Vice
to race
President
bait?
Harris, quote, I didn't know she was black until a number of years ago when she happened to turn black, and now she wants
Recording
to be
of a
known as
police
black.
call about
I
Haitians
want to ask
stealing
a bigger
geese.
picture question here tonight.
Right on libs
Why do
of
you believe
TikTok.
it's appropriate to weigh
Fact
in
check
on the
that, you
racial
bitch.
identity of your opponent?
I don't, and I don't care. I don't care what she is. I don't care. You make a big deal out of something. I couldn't care less. Whatever she wants to be is okay with me.
But those were your words, so I'm
I
asking.
don't know. I mean, all I can say is I read where she was not black, that she put out, and I'll say that. And then I read that she was black, and that's okay. Either one was okay with me. That's up to her. That's
She's
up
not
to her.
black. She's half black.
President Harris, your thoughts on this?
She's not even half black. She might be 10 or 15%.
She's half Jamaican.
Honestly, I think it's a tragedy.
She's more
her
European.
Jamaican father.
Wants
Her
to be
Jamaican
president
father was
who
also
has
Indian
consistently,
too. He had a
over the
mixture.
course of his career,
Yeah.
Right. She's
attempted
not
to use race
American
to divide
black.
the American people.
No.
You know, I
Yeah.
do believe
Shitty
that the
term,
vast majority of
African
us
American.
know
I
that
can't
we have
stand
so
it.
much more in common.
I'm
than what
surprised
separates
she's
us, and
not
we don't
talking
want
with a
this
Ebonics
kind of
accent
approach
right now.
that is just constantly trying to divide us, and
'cause her
especially by
audience is
race.
white.
And let's remember how Donald Trump started. He was land. He owned land. He owned buildings.
So what? Your
and
family
he
owns
was
slaves,
investigated
bitch.
because he refused to rent property to black families. Let's remember, this is the same individual who took out a full-page ad in the New York Times calling for the execution of 5 young black and Latino
what, 50 years
boys
ago?
who were innocent, the Central Park 5. Took out a full-page ad calling for their execution. This is the same individual who spread birther lies about the first black president of the United States. And I think the American people
Don't know if they're
want
lies,
better than that, want better than this, want someone who understands, as I
we
do,
want
I
something
travel
better
our
than you.
country. We see in each other a friend. We see in each other a neighbor. We don't want a leader who is constantly trying to have Americans point their fingers at each other. I meet with people all the time.
That's
who
exactly what
tell
she
me,
does.
Can we please just have discourse about how we're going to invest in the aspirations and the ambitions and the dreams of the American people? Knowing that regardless of people's color or the language their grandmother speaks, we all have the same dreams and aspirations and want a president who invests in those, not in hate and division.
Vice President Harris, thank you. Lindsay?
President Trump, this is now your 3rd time.
This is the most divisive presidency
Yes.
in the history of our country. There's never been anything like it. They're destroying our country, and they come up with things like what she just said. Going back many, many years, when a lot of people, including Mayor Bloomberg, agreed with me on the Central Park 5, they admitted, they said, they pled guilty. And I said, well, if they pled guilty, they badly hurt a person, killed a person ultimately. And if they pled guilty, then they pled, we're not guilty. But this is a person that has to stretch back years, 40, 50 years ago, because there's nothing now. I built one of the greatest economies in the history of the world, and I'm going to build it again. It's going to be bigger, better, and stronger. But they're destroying our economy. They have no idea what a good economy is. Their oil policies, every single policy. And remember this, she is Biden. You know, she's trying to get away from Biden. I don't know the gentleman, she says. She is Biden. The worst inflation we've ever had.
She's
a horrible
Obama.
economy because inflation has made it so bad, and she can't get away with that.
Thank you. Your time is up,
I
Lindsay.
want to respond to that, though. I want to just respond briefly.
You don't get a
Clearly,
response.
I am not Joe Biden, and I am certainly not Donald Trump. And what I do offer is a new generation of leadership for our country.
Oh, yeah.
One who believes in what is possible, one who brings a sense of optimism
Can unburden.
about what we can do instead of always
Unburdened by
disparaging
what has
the
been.
American people. I believe in what we can do to strengthen our small businesses, which is why I have a plan. Let's talk about our plans and let's compare the plans. I have a plan to give startup businesses $50,000 tax deduction.
That's a deduction.
to
That's not
pursue
cash flow.
their
Businesses
ambition,
need
their
cash flow,
innovation, their
bitch.
ideas,
Cash
their hard
flow.
work. I have a plan, $6,000 for young families for the first year of your child's life to help
That's-
you.
once again,
in that
that's not
most
cash
critical
to buy
stage of your
diapers.
child's development. I have a plan.
That's like
that is about
literally they get to
allowing
write off
people to be able to
$6,000
pursue
of their
what
$12,000
has
a
been
year.
fleeting in terms of the American dream by offering a help with down payment of $25,000 down payment assistance for first-time home buyers. That's the kind of conversation I believe, David, that
immigrant
people really
home
want
buyers.
tonight, as opposed to a
No,
conversation
that's
that
California.
is constantly about belittling.
Yeah, well, she's from there,
and
so
name
that's probably
calling.
her plan.
Let's turn the page.
Vice President
and move
Harris.
forward.
Yeah,
Thank you.
shut
Let's
the
turn
hell
to
up.
policy.
President
Let's turn
Trump,
back
we
to
have
policy.
to move on. President Trump.
Let's turn to policy,
She has
please.
a plan to defund the police. She has a plan to confiscate everybody's gun.
President Trump,
she
we
has
do
a
have to
plan
move
to
on to
not
other
allow
issues.
fracking in Pennsylvania or anywhere else.
Okay.
That's
Thank you,
what
Mr.
her
President.
plan is until just recently.
I just need
Lindsay,
to
go ahead.
respond
President
because
Trump,
no, the
President
former
Trump.
president has
No,
said
I'm
something
sorry.
twice that I need
Cut
to
the
respond
mic.
to.
Cut the
sorry,
mic.
we're
Cut
going
the
to move
mic.
on, Vice
One
President.
time
the
is what
mic.
he has
President
said
Trump, this
multiple
is
times.
now your
Yes.
third time running for president. You have long vowed to repeal and replace the Affordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare. You have failed to accomplish that. You now say you're going to keep Obamacare, quote, unless we can do something much better. Last month, you said, quote, we're working on it. So tonight, 9 years after you first started running, do you have a plan, and can you tell us what it is?
Obamacare was lousy health care. Always was.
Yeah, it
It's
was.
not very good today. And what I said, that if we come up with something, and we are working on things, we're going to do it and we're going to replace it. But remember this, I inherited Obamacare because Democrats wouldn't change it. They wouldn't vote for it. They were unanimous. They wouldn't vote to change it. If they would have done that, we would have had a much better plan than Obamacare. But the Democrats came up. They wouldn't vote for it. I had a choice to make when I was president. Do I save it and make it as good as it can be, never going to be great, or do I let it rot? And I felt I had an obligation, even though politically it would have been good to just let it rot and let it go away. I decided, and I told my people, the top people, and they're very good people. I have a lot of good people in that administration. We read about the bad ones. We had some real bad ones, too, and so do they. They have really bad ones. The difference is they don't get rid of them. But let me just explain. I had a choice to make. Do I save it and make it as good as it can be, or do I let it rot? And I saved it. I did the right thing. But it's still never going to be great, and it's too expensive for people. And what we will do is we're looking at different plans. If we can come up with a plan that's going to cost our people, our population, less money and be better health care than Obamacare, then I would absolutely do it. But until then, I'd run it as good as it can be run.
So just a yes or no, you still do not have a plan?
I have concepts of a plan. I'm not president right now. But if we come up with something, I would only change it if we come up with something that's better and less expensive. And there are concepts and options we have to do that. And you'll be hearing about it in the not too distant future.
Vice President Harris, in 2017, you supported Bernie Sanders' proposal to do away with private insurance and create a government-run healthcare system. 2 years later, you proposed a plan that included a private insurance option. What is your plan today?
Well, first of all, I absolutely support, and over the last 4 years as vice president, private health care options. But what we need to do is maintain and grow the Affordable Care Act. But I'll get to that. I just need to respond
terrible.
to a previous point.
People are paying so much money.
I've made very
single payer health care is
and
just
then
a
this
nightmare.
business about taking everyone's guns
Look at
away.
Canada healthcare.
Tim
That's what they
Walz and I
want.
are both gun owners. We're not
I
taking
know.
anybody's
I
guns
came
away.
from
So
there.
stop with
I
the
know.
continuous lying about this
I
stuff.
couldn't get a doctor.
As it relates to the
That's the
Affordable
way it
Care
is.
Act, understand, just look at the history
Once
to know
it's
where people
in the
stand.
government, then
When
all the
Donald Trump was
all the people
president,
involved in the healthcare
60
system
times
have to
he
be
tried to get rid
approved
of
by
the
the
Affordable
government.
Care
So
Act.
they
60
pick and,
times.
it's
I
a limited
was a senator
pool.
at the time when I will never forget the early morning hours when it was up for a vote in the United States Senate, and the late, great John McCain, who you have disparaged.
Great. She just called McCain great.
As
shut
being,
up.
you don't like him, you said at the time, because
You disparaged
he
lots
got
of people
caught.
you don't
He was an
like.
American hero. The late, great John McCain, I
my
will
God.
never
He
forget
is
that
not
night,
great.
walked onto the Senate floor and said, no, you don't. No, you don't. No, you don't get
No,
rid
you
of
don't.
the Affordable Care Act. You have no plan. And what the Affordable Care Act has done is eliminate the ability of insurance companies to deny people with pre-existing conditions.
It's the
I have to tell people
Unaffordable Care
watching
Act.
tonight,
It's the
you remember what that
opposite
was
of
like?
what it is.
Remember when an insurance company could deny if a child had asthma, if someone was a breast cancer survivor, if a grandparent had
That is
diabetes?
one good aspect
And
of the
thankfully,
ACA.
as I've been vice president, and we, over the last 4 years, have strengthened the Affordable Care Act, we have allowed, for the first time, Medicare to negotiate drug prices on behalf of you, the American people. Donald Trump said he was going to allow Medicare to negotiate drug prices. He never did. We did. And now we have capped the cost of insulin at $35 a month. Since I've been vice president, we have capped the cost of prescription medication for seniors at $2,000 a year. And when I am president, we will do that for all people, understanding that the value I bring to this is that access to health care should be a right and not just a privilege of those who can afford it. And the plan has to be to strengthen the Affordable Care Act, not get rid of it,
Vice
pass this
President
prologue
Harris, thank
in terms
you.
of where
It's a
Donald
mess.
Trump stands on
Why
that.
is
I
it a
want to
right?
move
It
to an
shouldn't be a
issue
right.
that's important for a
She
lot
made a
of
mistake. Number one, John McCain fought Obamacare for 10 years.
That's
But
right.
it wasn't only him. It were all of the Democrats that kept it going. And you know what? We can do much better than Obamacare, much less money. But she won't improve private insurance for people, private medical insurance. That's another thing she doesn't want to get.
President
People
Trump-
are paying privately for insurance that have worked hard and made money, and they want to have private. She wants everybody to be on government insurance where you wait 6 months for an operation that you need immediately.
President Trump, thank you. We have another issue that we'd like to get to that's important for a number of Americans, in particular younger voters, and that's climate change. President Trump, with regard to the environment, you say that we have to have clean air and clean water. Vice President Harris, you call climate change an existential threat. The question to you both tonight is, what would you do to fight climate change? And Vice President Harris, we'll start with you. 1 minute for you each.
Well, the former president had said that climate change is a hoax. And what we know is that it is very real. You ask anyone who lives in a state who has experienced these extreme weather occurrences, who now is either
Extreme
being
weather has
denied
nothing
home
to do with
insurance or it's
climate.
being jacked up. You ask anybody who has been
False science.
The victim
Yep.
of what that means in terms of losing their home, having nowhere to go. We know that we can actually deal with this issue. The young people of America care deeply about this issue. And I am proud that as vice president over the last 4 years, we have invested $1 trillion in a clean energy economy.
here we go.
While we have also increased domestic gas production to historic levels. We have created over 800,000 new manufacturing jobs while I have been vice president. We have invested in clean
No, you
energy
haven't.
to the point that we are opening up factories around the world. Donald
Oh,
Trump
come
said he was
on.
going to create manufacturing
Like the
jobs. He
7
lost manufacturing
electric
jobs.
EV chargers.
Actually,
I built?
he
Proud
did
to
save.
have the
He
endorsement
saved
of
jobs
United
by
Auto
the
Workers and
cutting
Sean
the
Fain,
taxes.
who also know that part of building a clean energy economy includes investing
a
in
liar.
American-made products, American automobiles. It includes growing what we can do around American manufacturing and opening up auto plants, not closing them like happened under Donald Trump.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
It didn't happen under Donald Trump. Let me just tell you, they lost 10,000 manufacturing jobs this last month. It's going, they're all leaving. They're building big auto plants in Mexico, in many cases owned by China. They're building these massive plants, and they think they're going to sell their cars into the United States because of these people. What they have given to China is unbelievable. But we're not going to let that. We'll put tariffs on those cars so they can't come into our country, because they will kill the United Auto Workers and any auto worker, whether it's in Detroit.
What happened? You press pause. Hello? Melissa?
Yeah?
Press play.
Oh, I didn't even press unplay. That's weird. I didn't even touch the
It's
screen.
muted.
That's so bizarre. Sorry, guys.
Business and manufacturing in this country is that when Ukraine, China, why did he get $3.5 million from the mayor of Moscow's wife? Why did she pay him $3.5 million? This is a crooked administration, and they're selling our country down the tubes.
President Trump, thank you.
Thank you.
We'll be right back with closing statements from both of our candidates. An historic night, this ABC News presidential debate from Philadelphia. Back in a moment.
Woo-wee. Chat. That is crazy. What are people saying? Oh, Mike Pompeo, let's be clear. When Kamala says she's executed the Trump plan for Afghanistan withdrawal, she is lying. It's that simple. Mike Pompeo is kind of a psychopath, though. Just remember. Dave Rubin, she's belittled and attacked him far more than he's belittled or attacked her. Someone said, Kamala Harris is a gun owner. Oh my goodness. I'm trying to get the latest updates of
CW
commentary.
Channer says he pressed the pause button. That's why it stopped. He reached into your computer and did it.
Thanks. Good job. Let's see what people are saying over on X, because a lot of the comments don't come in here. On our live stream on X, what an ass. She is horrible, as we all knew she would be. Mary. Mega Mike says, I don't even know how someone can listen to this asshole. Look at his own state. Destroyed Americans. What are you talking about? He's obviously not talking about Trump.
I think Harris is doing a really good job.
Yeah, she's not doing bad.
No,
she's not doing bad.
All things aside, she's winning this debate.
So she goes from 0 to hero after the last debate, and now mysteriously she has all the answers. She got the questions. She is such a liar. All anyone needs to do is open their eyes and look at the country to see she's lying. Every time her lips move, she's lying. I wish she'd go back to using her mouth or what she used. We won't go there.
On Willie Brown?
Yeah. Okay, so I notice how the questions go like this. ABC host spends 30 seconds stating anti-Trump Kamala talking points before asking Trump the question. Trump answers the question directly. Kamala is asked a softball question. She answers a different question. ABC is garbage news organization. Worst debate ever. Both are losers. Why is she allowed to ramble on? Only Spud said the unbelievably stupid coming out of her mouth is unreal. The Supreme Court deemed this unconstitutional. When I'm president, I'll sign it into law. She's been VP for 4 years and literally still doesn't understand how any of this works. No, Trump is debating David Manure and the other ABC moderator. So I think they're giving her softball questions and they're all attacking him in a really discreet way. He's getting a little bit emotional because they've got the whole narrative about stuff about him that's all lies, and there's people who believe it. So he's getting a little worked up.
I don't know.
I figured she'd ramble on a little bit more and be a bit coherent. I think she's rehearsed, and I think she had the questions.
Yeah, well, I don't know about the questions, but she's definitely well rehearsed. And like I said, I think she's doing a good job. She's doing better. She's doing way better than I expected her to do. How's that?
I think she's doing a good job at lying and being dishonest. That's what I think she's doing.
She's a politician. That's their job.
I realize that. They're all frauds. That's why people like Trump, because he's not a politician. and they can't get that. So we have, let's see, we have over 7,500 views on X, 4 watching on my X, and 20 watching on yours. Over,
22.
let's see, if 22. Ooh, we got, we had 9 watching on Rumble, but that went down. Maybe people went to bed when they left, so that went down. But doing good,
The
people.
debate's pretty boring, to be honest.
Mm-hmm. I don't want her to be well, she's totally doing everything that Trump has said. That's her whole shtick. Is she's totally against fracking. And most of the stuff she's saying they achieved, they haven't really achieved. Like all this energy stuff, the jobs, it's all lies. It's total dishonesty. I mean, the jobs they say created were never created. They just weren't. Let's see. I love you all. We will party in November. I wouldn't say she's winning this debate. I wouldn't say she's winning. She's just not as incoherent as I thought she would be. Because I wish Trump would mention more of her police stuff and jailing black men and stuff like that. I really do. Okay, let's go here.
We begin with you.
So I think you've heard tonight 2 very different visions for our country. One that is focused on the future, and the other that is focused on the past. And an attempt to take us
do anything but focus on the future.
But we're not
That's
going
impossible.
back. And I do believe that the American people know we all have so much more in common than what separates us. And we can chart a new way forward. And a vision of that includes having a plan, understanding the aspirations, the dreams, the hopes, the ambition of the American people, which is why I intend to create an opportunity economy, investing in small businesses, in new families, in what we can do around protecting seniors, what we can do that is about giving hardworking folks a break and bringing down the cost of living. I believe in what we can do together that is about sustaining America's standing in the world and ensuring that we have the respect that we so rightly deserve, including respecting our military and ensuring we have the most lethal fighting force in the world. I will be a president that will protect our fundamental rights and freedoms, including the right of a woman to make decisions about her own body and not have her government tell her what to do. I'll tell you, I started my career as a prosecutor.
You're muted,
I was a
Jer.
DA, I was an attorney general, a United States
She
senator,
won't have
and now
that
vice
power to
president.
do
I've only had
that.
one
Congress
client,
has to
the
act.
people.
She just
And I'll
says
tell
she'll
you,
sign
as a
it.
prosecutor, I never asked a victim or a witness, are you a Republican or a Democrat? The only thing I ever asked them, are you okay?
Oh, bullshit.
And that's the kind of
What a
president we
lying.
need right now. Someone
Oh
who
my
cares
God.
about you and is not putting themselves first. I intend to be a president for all Americans and focus on what we can do over the next 10 and 20 years to build back up our country by investing right now in you, the American people.
Oh my
Vice
God,
President
it's a boohoo
Harris,
fest.
thank you.
Liberals will love
President
that.
Trump.
So she just started by saying she's going to do this, she's going to do that, she's going to do all these wonderful things. Why hasn't she done it? She's been there for 3.5 years. They've had
There you
3.5
go.
years to fix the border. They've had 3.5 years to create jobs and all the things we talked about. Why hasn't she done it? She should leave right now, go down to that beautiful White House, go to the Capitol, get everyone together and do the things you want to do, but you haven't done it and you won't do it because you believe in things that the American people don't believe in. You believe in things like we're not going to frack, we're not going to take fossil fuel, we're not going to do things that are going to make this country strong, whether you like it or not. Germany tried that, and within 1 year, they were back to building normal energy plants. We're not ready for it. We can't sacrifice our country for the sake of bad vision. But I just ask one simple question. Why didn't she do it? We're a failing nation. We're a nation that's in serious decline. We're being laughed at all over the world. All over the world, they're laughed. I know the leaders very well. They're coming to see me. They call me. We're laughed at all over the world. They don't understand what happened to us as a nation. We're not a leader. We don't have any idea what's going on. We have wars going on in the Middle East. We have wars going on with Russia and Ukraine. We're going to end up in a third world war, and it'll be a war like no other because of nuclear weapons, the power of weaponry. I rebuilt our entire military. She gave a lot of it away to the Taliban. She gave it to Afghanistan. What these people have done to our country, and maybe toughest of all, is allowing millions of people to come into our country. Many of them are criminals, and they're destroying our country. The worst president, the worst vice president in the history of our country.
President Trump, thank you. And that is our ABC News presidential debate from here in Philadelphia at the National Constitution Center. I'm Lindsay Davis.
And I'm David Muir. Thank you for watching here in the U.S. and all over the world, and from all of us here at ABC News. Good night.
Oh, it was only 90 minutes.
Yeah, it's longer. Yeah, with you. All right.
And that concludes the ABC.
I don't want to listen to what they have to say, but that concludes it. That is done. We are done. What do you think about their closing statements?
The same thing I felt about the debate. It was worthless.
I don't think this is going to budge anyone's opinion of them.
Right. It was food for the base. Put it this way: people are going to vote for Trump regardless. People are going to vote for Harris regardless. There's a small portion of undecideds, and that's who this was for. So if I was undecided and I was watching that and I really had no choice, I'd probably pick Kamala.
Oh, I wouldn't. But I wish Trump would have talked more about the stuff that he has plans for industry in some of those places like Pennsylvania, because he does have plans to bring industry back into America.
He does.
He has really good plans and really promising plans, and I wish he would have said, here's our plan for the future. I wish he could have pointed out how that they're in charge, but here's our plan, and here's the industry we want to build. She's lying about me. This is all fraud, but here's what we want to give Americans, and I wish he would have ended with that.
That would have been great, but the structure of this debate wouldn't allow that type of deeper discussion. So they have to keep the talking points. I don't know. I really hate debate. I hate the time constraints. I'd rather just see them sit down and talk without moderators.
Yeah.
And just hear what they talk. Yeah, she did look shook. Sorry.
She looks
shook. I'm answering a question on the live stream.
Kamala looked shook. By shook, you mean like
nervous, upset,
disarmed? Yeah, she did.
Yeah.
She did look disarmed. She looked, but everything with Kamala is an emotional plea.
Yes.
And I'm just tired of this emotional BS and little crybaby essays.
Feelings over facts, baby.
And yeah, I'm tired of it. And I'm tired of it from liberal women who always want everything to be emotional. And yeah, I understand we got to take care of Americans and stuff, but they're pleading for an emotion that won't give them the results that they want. And like I said, I cannot understand why women worship abortion so much, other than that they're nuts.
The reason they worship it is because not having it is to them a violation of their body. Like if they're carrying a baby and they don't want it, why can't they get rid of it? I understand. I understand both sides of it.
Well, the irony is they don't consider it a violation of their body to be promiscuous and fuck whoever and get pregnant. Right. They don't consider that a violation, which it is. They literally think that by being a man-like and being promiscuous, that they can go out and have sex however they want. All they're doing is giving men free sex. And then they want to kill the baby. I'm like, are you crazy? Are you guys nuts? Like, what's wrong with you? And then they're like, body autonomy. I go, I guess the baby's bodily autonomy doesn't matter. I guess vaccination bodily autonomy doesn't matter. These women are dumb. And they're being used by these men who have sex with them and they get knocked up. They're being used. And they're too stupid to realize that it's not working in women's favor. None of this shit is working in women's favor. None of it is.
Women are being erased.
Yeah. We are. We don't even exist. Apparently, we can't even say womb. We can't even say the proper anatomy. It has to be a front hole so some guy with a mental health issue doesn't get offended.
You can't be pregnant either. You have to be a birthing person.
Yeah.
What is it now? There's a new term now. It's people who can experience pregnancy or something. It's a wording like that. People who are pregnant capable or some shit like that.
It's word salad from narcissistic psychopaths.
It's nonsensical, Marxist political correctness. It's like the idea, like, okay, so if I called somebody a colored person, that's considered racist, right?
Yeah.
But if I call you a person of color, that's acceptable.
Yeah. You just switch the words around and change.
What's the difference?
Because that's what they used in 1950s and 60s.
I know.
It
was a rhetorical question.
Yeah, I know. But that's how they think. They're like, if it was in the 1950s and 60s, it must be bad immediately. We can't go backwards. I'm like, really? That's funny because you're following Marxist regimes that was installed in like 1917 or something, you know?
Yeah, and then she made it during her closing statement about going back. I don't think anything Trump said is backtracking.
No, it's forward.
From her point of view, though, however, she feels that her administration, Biden-Harris administration, moved the bar forward on a lot of issues, which Trump will probably get rid of. And that's what she meant by that. They're not going to take us back, 100 years.
They moved the bar forward on really extreme, non-scientific, leftist positions. That is not progression. That's actually a degrading of our country.
Yeah, on purpose.
Because
they are not that intelligent and they don't look forward. They don't look at what their policies will do 10, 15, 20 years ahead. They only look at what will this fix now. It's the whole immediate gratification thing.
Well, it's immediate gratification. It's they don't even look at problems to solve. They just make promises that they know they're never going to carry through. They make emotional pleas to get deals, and they know what their plan is for 20 years. They're globalists. They know their plan is to enslave us all. That's what they know, and they got to take America down. They know what the big plan is. It's just not progressive and for people like they say it is. It's always the inversion. These people are inversion. Trump says it like it is. And they wishy-washy and manipulate people, and liberal women are the worst because they're easy to manipulate. They're absolutely the worst because they believe it directly. They believe all this lyrical poetry that they're spouting out
because they have 4-year university degrees and they've been indoctrinated into this mindset for 12, 14, 16 years, right?
Yeah. Exactly. Marla says, I try to stay silent because it just starts an argument. I'm in for an argument. But it gets old.
They're so tolerant until you disagree with them.
Inclusive people are only inclusive if you agree with them. That's right. I made a comment about the immigrants from Venezuela to my in-laws the other day, and that their prison stuff. And my in-law, the stepfather was like, we're immigrants from Germany. I'm like, yeah, but you're legal immigrants and they didn't hoard you in out of a jail and you're not actually, a gang violent person. It's two totally completely different things. Teddy says, by the way, I'm Meg. I'm assuming I'm in a safe safe space, and I can speak plainly. Yes, you can. Don't think I'm being unnecessarily contrarian, though. That's fine. We had a couple liberals here. It's like whatever. That's fine, but it's not logical. None of it's logical. It doesn't follow and I think it's on purpose that it doesn't follow what you have to do to we can't be a successful country if our debt far exceeds what we're producing.
And it does.
And it does.
Well, I mean, we can't even talk seriously about economy. We're $34 trillion in debt. The country can never recover from that.
No.
Ever. So
do you think they're planning like this great reset kind of thing?
I think they're going to. What I think is going to happen is they're going to push to get digital currency and then wipe the books clean and start fresh.
I wonder what the effects of that will be.
Oh, horrible.
Yeah.
It's going to be, it'll be, well, here's the other thing too. After every major world war, the countries involved defaulted on their debt. So that could be one of the ploys here is to get us into a world war, and then we can wipe out our debt and start fresh with digital currency.
Yeah. Tinfoil Tiara says, yep, people used to be able to have different views without hating on each other. You know what I think they've done? Here's what I think's happened. It's kind of like CIA kind of stuff. I think over the decades with political correctness and a lot of narratives in our movies, our media has been fed to us, and it's unconscious. We don't really know. And then once this stuff happened, once anyone challenged them, they trigger in their media narrative, they trigger, oh my God, there's a villain, there's a Nazi, and they make up a story. And that makes us, the weaker people, think that they're in a fight for their life because they've had slowly over decades these little narratives put in their head from movies and media that are not necessarily true, even about World War II. So they think if you criticize somebody who's Jewish, you're an anti-Semite. When you're just criticizing them, not for being Jewish, but just maybe their business practices were bad. Or maybe they raped somebody.
Yeah.
You know,
the Jewish thing, the anti-Semite thing, it's a whole ADL creation.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And the ADL was, by the way, created to defend a guy who was raped and murdered a girl.
I know.
It's insane. But we have a lot of stuff that's been put in our head and we don't realize it. We think we're just, innocently watching a film about, the FBI or something. We're just innocently watching media. We had no idea what level of hypnotic structure this was. Yeah. And a lot of people, they didn't even know 9/11 didn't wake them up. A lot of people were woken up by the pandemic, but not enough. People are still in these things and they know the words. Like you watch them talk about Russia and all they did was oligarch, Russian oligarch. So everyone's freaking out thinking there's these tyrannical oligarchs, and there are oligarchs in Russia, but they forget to tell you that we're all full of oligarchs too. I mean, Elon Musk is technically an oligarch. And so they have, it's like they have these key words, Nazi, anti-Semite. They've fed those into us over decades. So now when things aren't going their way, they use these little trigger words and people flip the hell out. Or people get scared and won't face it. They won't confront it because they're too scared to be kicked out of the herd or lose their job.
Don't forget cognitive dissonance is in there too. And unless you live in the woods by yourself, you are programmed by the world on a daily basis.
We all are.
Yes.
And you have to be strong enough to analyze it.
Yes.
And it's hard. It's difficult.
Yeah. Well, just don't watch the news. That's probably the best. You have to be very discerning with what you watch. Try to watch a good variety of things so you can contrast and compare.
Yeah.
And don't pick sides. That's probably my...
It's hard not to when you see them so blatantly politically attacking someone like Trump and trashing the whole system.
You could still dislike what's going on and not pick a side.
Yeah, it's crazy. All right, y'all speaking my language now. Let's go. Okay, yeah. Well, it's been a really great night. We've been streaming for over 2.5 hours. There's supposed to be another debate on October 1st. Whether I'll stream it or not, I have no idea. I don't even know if it's going to happen. I doubt it's going to
happen.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be on Fox, right?
I think it would be better if there was a debate on Fox. I think it would be fair, but Democrats are never fair. They're manipulative. They're all about power that they say everybody else is about. They are all about power and control and maintaining the power that they've had for decades in Washington, D.C. Fascist is my favorite. They don't even know what it means. They don't know what it means. And they think it means a right-wing person or a conservative. And fascist is maybe, fascism is so far left.
Right, exactly.
It's ridiculous.
What they call fascist is actually totalitarian or authoritarian. Fascism is what our government is doing with their public-private partnerships. That
yes,
is
with
fascism.
corporations and the
Yes.
military industrial complex. That is actually fascism, and they
Yeah.
support it. They're like, "Ooh, Apple likes me. Apple's got a rainbow on their thing."
I can't wait
You
to get
know,
the next
the bank
MacBook.
the bank put an apple, or the bank put a rainbow flag on their banner. They love me, so this time fascism's good. It's
Yes.
awesome, and it's absolutely insane, and it's I never thought we'd be here when I was a kid in the 80s. I never thought we'd be at this state right now. It's shocking, but I used to hear my grandmother complain about this, some similar stuff in the 80s. She could see it with and so these complaints have always been there. It's just so extreme now. It's hard to even ignore. And also the internet. I think if the internet had been around in the 80s, things would have progressed much faster.
Oh yeah, it definitely accelerated things.
All right. Well, I don't know. I was bummed out by the debate only because I felt it was definitely in Kamala's favor and set up to be so. That's how I feel
I
about
just
it.
thought it was boring.
Yeah. Well, there you go.
We didn't.
All right, guys.
We learned nothing at the debate.
I learned what I knew about Kamala, and I know that the lefties are going to go with it and go crazy. Just before we go, let's see if we have some other good comments. Abdul is the #2 trend in the country right now. Instant classic. Candace Owen says, I've been working with my 3-year-old not whining when he asks a question, and Kamala made me appreciate how far he's come. So Candace Owens also said, Kamala is leaning into every plausible stereotype of a nagging woman right now. I desperately need her to stop whining and telling us exactly where she was when she heard some news and how it made her feel.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Okay.
You heard that Candace got thrown off YouTube today.
She did. She got a week suspension.
I watched
her stream on Rumble. It's a targeted. They're targeting her and reporting her en masse. I watched her on Rumble.
People need to get off YouTube. That's just horrible.
That's well, we are streaming on YouTube right now, but we also stream on Rumble, guys. So before I go, you can find Jer at noxmente.com or just type in Noxmente on YouTube. You can find Niish. She had to leave early at thecosmicsalon.com. She runs that. My website is genxonx.com. And of course, we are on Rumble with Gen X on X. It's streaming here live right now. And there is a Patreon site. I got to put up an extra show in the morning for that. It is patreon.com/genxonx. But the best place, of course, to go is genxonx.com. And that's all I have to say. I'm going to tie it off. I got to get to bed. I'm tired. It's been a long night. All right, guys. I really appreciate you guys all from tuning in, and we will catch you. I'll probably do some live streams both Wednesday and Thursday on some new stuff. I got some interesting things to talk about. Spencer Cox. He is a creepy governor who's cheating like crazy, so I might talk about him tomorrow night. Cheers, guys.